Derek Carr got benched, and everybody was like, "Oh, y'all know it's coming, right?" Like Dennis Allen's going to go grab his quarterback from Oakland, and it's funny because a lot of the fans were like, "Hell no, we don't want no Derek Carr. No, it would kill me if we signed Derek Carr." And it just shows you how fanaticism is crazy, right? Because then we signed Derek Carr in February, and everybody's like, "Hell yeah, we got Derek Carr. Let's go."
Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another video here on the channel. If you don't know me by now, my name is David. I also go by Miller Football, and I'm currently doing a series here on this channel where I am talking about all 32 teams in depth with the help of fans of each of those teams. If it's not apparent by the jerseys hanging to the right of me or the shirt below me, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints, and we've got three guests here to talk about them. To my right, we've got my buddy Valente. Below me, we've got Jono Barnes, and then down to the bottom right, we've got Jason. So before we jump into this, fellas, how are we doing today?
Good.
I'm great, man. We're 3 weeks away from football. Hard Knocks debut tonight, which means that football is right around the corner. I'm in a great mood.
Yeah, preseason was the first opening game was great. You know, it was a little underwhelming, but it was great. Good to have football season back.
I was going to say it was still football.
Right,
that's all I need.
Exactly.
I was gonna say I missed it so much that I watched that entire game, including the halftime and like.
Me too.
Pre-game.
My wife was mad at me. I'm like, dude, football.
Yeah, I saw that video. I was
like, for this. I don't care if it's the janitors playing out there, man. It's football. It's NFL football.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, that's how I felt.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm. I love the passion. But talking about the Saints here, jumping over to the Saints. The first question I have for you guys, I want to ask, and because it's recent, I think this is a good place to start. How are we feeling about the whole Alvin Kamara situation?
It's a party, honestly. Like, it was supposed to be so much worse before, like, 2 weeks ago, probably. So I feel, like, very relieved. But, again, you know, it's still a suspension. But I feel like 3 weeks was probably, like, the best you could have got out of that.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I'm honestly not too worried. We have some, like, our running back room has depth to it now, which is nice. We picked up that guy in the draft, and then Kareem Hunt's thinking about signing, so I'm not too worried.
Yeah, when the news dropped, I said you'll be surprised at how low the floor is for Saints fans when they announced 3 games of our best player being out. We were like, hell yeah, like. That was a miracle for us, especially with how Roger Goodell treats our team. I actually had tweeted that kind of blew up a little bit. I said, you know, Sean Payne not here no more when a player like ours who's on camera, on 4K, doing what he did, he only got 3 games of it. That was a miracle. It was probably the best case scenario we can ask for besides hoping that he didn't get suspended, but obviously he had to. I mean, the footage is the footage. So 3 games is perfect to me because also I don't want Alvin Kamara playing 17 full games. Like I think 17 games in general is wild for any player to play. So for him to miss the first 3 games, that's fine. We got Jamal Williams and Kendre Miller to hold down the fort, Taysom Hill, you know, if you want to include him as a runner. And then hopefully if we're knock on wood, 2-1 or 3-0 when Kamara comes back, and that's really obviously best case scenario. We got Alvin Kamara with fresh legs coming to a winning team. Like that would be just a dream scenario. And the city will be on fire. So I was actually very happy with the news as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. This was definitely the best case scenario for you guys. And I think, Jono, you brought up a really interesting point. It probably is better to have Kamara miss a few games here and have him not be hurt and not have to worry about, especially with the beatings we've seen running backs taking. And, you know, that's a whole other conversation about their pay and whatnot. So to have your star running back missing 3 games, not because he's hurt, but because he, you know, did what he did. And honestly, compared to some of the shit people do nowadays, I felt like that was kind of tame. It's not the end of the world for me to see a guy fight another dude in that type of situation. It is what it is.
I say, who hasn't had a wild night in Las Vegas before? I mean,
right.
New Orleans, Bourbon Street. Who hasn't had a wild night in Bourbon Street? Now, I'm not, you know, saying what he did was okay, but I'm like, some people were making it seem like it was a life or death. And I'm like, let's throw our roll. He made a big mistake. He deserves all the heat that comes with it, but he didn't do anything, you know, that was God willingly, you know, death sentence type thing. It was a fight.
We've seen other people in Vegas, you know, do worse.
There's somebody fighting in Vegas right now. Like literally as we speak, there's probably like 8 fights going on in Vegas. It happens. Vegas. Like, come on.
Yeah, when you have guys like Kareem Hunt, ironically, is kind of topical. But Kareem Hunt, Joe Mixon, Deshaun Watson, when guys like that are in the league doing the shit that they've done, I feel like what Kamara did is pretty tame. Absolutely. Like, again, I'm with you, Jono. I'm not trying to excuse it, but could be a hell of a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a bar set between like severity of
it's
levels like Cam Jono. It's levels.
There absolutely are levels to it. That's a great way to put it.
As someone who has an Alvin Kamara jersey, like I love the dude, but I feel like you guys are underplaying it. Kind of like I don't know. You're saying it was like you're saying it was like a fight. No, he got on an elevator and got mad at the guy for trying to get in an elevator. Like that. That's not like let's fight.
Really, is that the context behind it?
That's literally what happened. Yeah, the guy just was trying to get on the elevator, and Alvin Kamara had the ego, and he was like, "You're not getting on."
That is how it works.
I heard, and this is all he say, she say, because none of us were there, so it was all your story versus my story. The honest, there's three sides: your story, his story, and the truth. Now I heard that the guy was antagonizing Kamara and his crew all night. There was some saying that he was coming at Kamara's lady, making disparaging remarks or whatnot. I don't think, and then maybe this is me being biased, and I admittedly say so, that Kamara is that much of an asshole that he would be like, oh, no, you're not getting on an elevator. And even if the guy still said, well, you can't tell me what to do, I don't think Kamara is that hot of a head where he would say, okay, well, now me and my crew got to beat you up. I think there was definitely some tension and some words were exchanged prior to the elevator thing happening. Now, Jason, I absolutely understand what you're saying. Like, yes, we shouldn't sugarcoat what happened. And I'm not, again, like Miller said, I'm not excusing what happened, but I also think that, and this is just me, I just think fights aren't that big a deal. I mean, I don't know if you guys been watching the news, but the big story since Sunday was the Riverboat Rumble that's happening. I'm sure you guys seen it. Like, everybody's taking it as entertainment. Like, it's a fight. As long as no guns are drawn, as long as nothing, physically between the male and the female happens, whenever it's like a fight, just a general fist thrown. And I do think, I agree with Jason, I think Kamara's crew took it a little bit too far, which is why he had to go through the legal process and why he is getting 3 games. But in general, I just think fights aren't that big of a deal where I'm going to lose sleep over it. But Kamara was absolutely in the wrong. I do agree with Jason with that.
Yeah. If I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure he only landed one punch, like one. I'm not sure. I watched the footage like 3 times, and
you see that guy's face looks a lot more than one punch.
Yeah.
I'm like, Kamara seems to be one of the smarter players. Like, why would you put yourself in that? You got a posse. They let them do the dirty work. Like, you're Alvin Kamara. That's why you have a posse first. Well, let me take the lick for you. I was very disappointed, just the stupidity of it. So honestly, he should get 3 games for just being stupid like that. But he did a press conference last week where he seems to, obviously he's going to say what we want to hear and what the PR people probably coached him. But he seems like a smart enough guy that he's learned from it, and hopefully we can just judge him by his actions going forward.
Yeah. And my big thing is, I'm not trying to excuse his actions, right? That's not the point here. I'm just saying, on the grand scheme of things, when you compare what Kamara did to what some other guys have done in the NFL and got away with, and like I said, Joe Mixon, Kareem Hunt, and then obviously Deshaun Watson, what those guys did, I think it's pretty easy to say what they did is worse than Kamara. I'm not saying Kamara shouldn't have gotten suspended or anything like that, but it's definitely not as morally fucked for me personally. And, when you get into morals, that's a very gray area, and people are going to disagree and agree, and they're going to have their own codes and whatnot. And that's totally fine. I'm just saying I feel a lot better about having a running back that beat a dude up in the elevator than hit a woman or did the unspeakable things that Watson did. But either way, moving on from that, talking about the Saints season last year, this is a team that went 7-10, ended up 3rd in the NFC South, 4-5 at home, 3-5 on the road, and then 3-2 in their last 5 games. Just kind of as a whole, in retrospective, what were your thoughts on the season last year? Just a very broad question, I know, but anything you want to throw out?
I'm going to bank off somebody. Somebody start this.
Honestly, I don't think when I did this video last year, I had really high hopes because we had Winston going, and I thought he was going to be really good at it after his eye surgery. He goes down week 1 or 2, whatever it was. He was out for a while. Andy Dalton did the best he can. Like, for what we had, I think most of our losses were 1-possession games. We could have easily made the playoffs. Not saying we would have done anything, but for what we had that year with all the injuries and stuff, I say we did pretty fine. We weren't a playoff team, but stuff to look forward to.
Yeah.
No, I completely disagree. Last year, the NFC South was one of the worst. I believe it went down in history actually as the worst division of all time. The football gods gave Dennis Allen a gift, and Lord knows Dennis Allen, don't get me started. I mean, get me started because this is a Saints episode, has received many gifts in his coaching career. Because I can probably, and I'm pretty sure you all can count on one hand how many times a coach has gotten. He's going in his 5th year as a head coach. No winning record at all time. I don't think this ever happened before, or at least no more than 5 times where a head coach has had 4 losing seasons and he's getting the 5th year. And then last year, the football guys say, Dennis Allen, we are going to give you the worst division ever. All you got to do is win 8 games and you're in. He couldn't do that. I don't want to hear about Jameis getting hurt and Andy. No. We had the bare minimum was 8 wins last year and we couldn't get it done. Last year was an epic failure. And I'm mad because the Saints fooled me, right? Like when Sean Payne retired, I was one of the main ones saying, Saints fans, fans are always going to be fans. But, oh, no, calm down. We still got a great foundation. We got a great organization. I was like, guys, I'm not a historian, but I'm pretty sure history shows that you don't lose a top 5 quarterback, in my opinion, of all time, and a top 5 current head coach and think that everything is going to be hokey-dory, right? So the Saints, the great PR franchise they are, made me drink the Kool-Aid by signing Tyrann Matthew, signing Jarvis Landry. You sign the 2 LSU favorites. You make a Chris Olave trade and a Trevor Penn trade. I'm like, okay, you know what? The Saints might actually do something good this year. And for us to have that horrible season, it wasn't just, injuries. Like, if you watch the games, and Valente and Jason did, like, it was just other. I can accept bad football with injuries. What I cannot accept is stupid football. Every week it was false starts, it was penalties, it was questionable decisions. It was just horrible football. That is my biggest pet peeve as a fan. And so I am giving Dennis Allen no leeway. It was a horrible, epic failure of a season. This is it for Dennis Allen this upcoming season. For him, man, honestly, I feel like Derek Carr as well, because we gave Derek Carr a lot of weapons. I know that's not the question, but Derek Carr has a lot of weapons. I feel like make or break time for them. The only excuse that Dennis Allen has in his pocket right now is if Derek Carr, God forbid, goes down, I would give Dennis Allen some leeway. But hell, we got high hopes for Jameis Winston, right? So it should be, okay, if Derek Carr goes down, the train keeps on moving. But last year, nobody can convince me otherwise. And I always tell Saints fans, if the Falcons had the year that the Saints had last year, we will be dancing on their graves. So I do not like when people say last year wasn't too bad. Last year was an epic failure for the Saints.
I agree with both, like Jason and Jono, kind of, because I think it was an epic failure in the sense that, like, you had a wide open division the entire year. Like, you were 4-9 in second place, fighting with Tampa for 4 or 5 weeks straight. You blow leads or blow a lead that's the season changing lead right there. That game gets you into the playoffs. And like Jason said, there's a bunch of 1 possession games that you can factor into the season, but just overall, like you can't put that all on Dennis Allen, even though it does kind of like all fall back on him. I feel like there's a lot more factored into it than just Dennis Allen. I know he sucks. I'm on the Dennis Allen's not a good coach train, but I'm also on I think that he can become one, in the sense that he's going to be given more gifts this year than ever. He's still got a wide open division, and now you know that. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but now you know that it's wide open. You got Tampa with no QB. You got Atlanta who are looking good, as much as I don't want to say it, but I don't know if they're going to put it all together this year. And then Carolina, who's, I think, kind of, I guess you could say ass backwards. I don't know, because Carolina to me is like, they have the pieces there, but in the same sense as Atlanta, I don't think they might put it together. Like, I feel like it's
you're
just
asking a lot of a rookie quarterback.
Yeah,
in Carolina,
and there's a lot of pressure on Bryce, and I don't want to try and make this about Bryce, but there's a lot of pressure on Bryce considering he's probably I'm not going to say the smallest quarterback in history, but he might be.
I don't think he'd be far off if you said that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that as any sort of disrespect to Bryce. I'm a huge Bryce Young fan, but I'm pretty sure he is one of, if not the smallest quarterback ever.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he's gonna be expected to do a lot year one. So there's there's a bit of more pressure on him than there is anybody else. So again, like I was saying, it's a wide open division.
Mhm.
It's anybody's game, and there's a lot of shit going Dennis Allen's way now, to the point where if you don't win it this year, you got to see the door. Yeah.
It's funny that you guys went so hard on Dennis Allen there, because that was actually going to be my next question, but that's perfect. I do want to say it's tough to evaluate the Saints. Like I told you guys coming into this, I'm not exactly the biggest Saints guy right now. I will say it's pretty easy to say they have the best quarterback in the division right now, and that's a big thing to have. Like you've got a rookie who, again, love Bryce Young, a lot of expectations on his shoulders. Not every day do you see a rookie quarterback come in and start firing right away. There's going to be some growing pains. You're going to have to deal with some of that. You've got Desmond Ridder, who is, he had a little bit of experience last year, but you're still asking a lot of him. In Atlanta, they've got some defensive pieces they need to come together. The only surefire thing the Falcons have is a good run game. And as much as I love that, as someone who is a strong advocate for running backs and fullbacks everywhere, that's only going to get you so far in the modern NFL, right? And then Tampa Bay, God love them. I don't know what the hell's going on over there. They're currently debating between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. And if that's not the definition of down bad, I don't know what is. So, like Valente said, the division is wide open. It's just about trying to piece everything together and, hoping everything can cook. And we're going to talk about some of those moving pieces, namely the quarterback, because that's the big variable, especially for me. But yeah, it's like I said, it's really tough from the outside looking in. I can see why there would be optimism in New Orleans after last year and after the offseason, but I can also see why there would be pessimism. So I'm kind of on the fence. Like I said, I'm kind of hoping you guys sell me on them, because I want to have faith in somebody in that division, because good Lord, it's hard to have faith in anybody. But looking at some of the stats from last year, I've really went heavy into looking at EPA per play for this series, just to kind of judge where teams were at. They were 29th in rushing, which is very uncharacteristic for the Saints. They were 17th in passing, 22nd in run defense, and really, really struggled on early downs against the run. 14th in coverage, so a little bit better there. And then also looking at their points scored, they were 22nd in points scored with 330, 9th in points allowed with 345, and 17th in point differential with negative 15. So do any of those numbers jump out at you immediately, maybe show you something you saw on the field last year, or surprise you or anything like that?
Yes, the 9th in points allowed, because that's the big thing. The run defense, which usually is a strength of our defense, obviously took a big downfall last year. Mm-hmm. And our secondary was actually a great secondary. Unfortunately, Marshawn Lattimore went out for about 80% of the season with an abdomen injury, so that affected him. But towards the latter part of the season, our defense really started to come back on again. And in fact, as much flack as I give Dennis Allen, I will always give this man this credit. He can coach his ass off with a defense. He is an elite defensive guy. I will always give him that credit. So 9th in points allowed is the number I take away from that, because if we can stay in the top 10 of points allowed, and I am going to assume that our offense will be considerably better with Carr at quarterback, then that is a reason why you should have faith that the Saints can be a playoff team. Even if the Saints kind of fall off a little bit on defense and maybe say we are top 15 in points allowed on defense, I think our offense, I'm hoping at least, will be top 15 this year. I'm not asking for a lot. Just give me a top 15 offense. And with the hopes that I have of our defense continuing to be one of the top defenses in the NFL, that I feel, along with the fact that, again, it's such a questionable division. I know that Valente says that Carolina is a team that he doesn't know if he's ready to take the leap. I actually have my eye on them. I think they had a great offseason. And I know rookie quarterbacks are very, questionable. You don't know. But, hey, we've seen rookie quarterbacks come in. And, Joe Flacco, if y'all remember, took the team to the AFC Championship his rookie year. So it's not, this thing that isn't impossible. I'm hoping that, hey, I'm a grade A hate. As soon as they called Bryce Young's name on that podium, I became his number one hate. I'm hoping he's a bust. Yeah. I'm hoping he's a bust. But if he even gives them side of play, I got my eye on Carolina. Tampa, they did what they had to do for the Tom Brady era. So, hey, this is the downfall of it. Hey, I would gladly trade, have a down year like Tampa, assumingly is going to have the run that they had with Tom Brady. As much as I hate to say it, I would gladly do what Tampa Bay did. And with Atlanta, I don't see it. I really don't. I don't see the talent that some people are saying is on the come up and whatnot. And that's just maybe possibly me being the biggest Falcons hater in the world. But I think it's between us and Carolina. And I do think if our defense could stay in that 9 points per game, get allowed from a defense, and if our offense can just go up to top 15, I think those numbers are the ones that we can focus on to showcase why we should be, will be the favorites in the NFC South this year.
See, I think it's completely. You were talking about the Panthers. I think our biggest threat is the Falcons. Honestly, with the Panthers, Bryce Young, yeah, he's a rookie. Like, I don't want anyone to be a bust. I hope he has a successful career. Hopefully, not cooking us for the next 20 years, but successful enough. But I just feel like the weapons they put around him, like they got him Adam Thielen. Okay, he's 10 years past, not 10 years past. He's like 4 years past his prime. Like, come on, like they gave him no weapons. Miles Sanders is his best weapon, and it's in the running back position. Atlanta, though, they upgraded their defense, took most of our defense. We should just call them the New Orleans Falcons, dead ass, when it comes to their defense.
And the defensive coordinator.
Stole like 5 of our players.
Little brother wants to be so bad.
It's so bad, but Atlanta's offense is like, if Desmond Ridder can just be a game manager, I can see them winning or keeping pace with us because they have a lot of weapons. They have the 2 running backs. They have Kyle Pitts, as bad as he was, or not bad, but like underwhelming as he was. I think he can bounce back and still have a successful career. Drake London, I've seen a lot of reports about him being really freaking good. What's that one receiver's name? He was real skinny last year, and he became like this beast over the summer. I can't remember what his name was.
Mac Hollins.
Yeah, there you go. He's looking real
My
nice.
boy.
Like I think Atlanta is looking real nice this year. They're scary. I think they're the scariest ones, besides the Saints, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I lean more towards the Falcons in this division, at least for competition for the Saints, right? Like, I know Jono's upset, but I'm a big Arthur Smith guy. I love what he brings to the table. And like Jason mentioned, all they need is Ridder to be a game manager because Arthur Smith's offense is very much predicated on we're going to run the ball, we're going to use that to establish play action, and from there, we're going to cook, right? And that's a very simple type of offense to run for that type of quarterback. Defense is kind of where it's iffy for me. You're really relying on some young pieces to step up, and it's absolutely possible. I'm not saying it isn't. By the time this gets uploaded, my Falcons preview should be out already. So if you want to hear my full thoughts on the Falcons, you can go check that out. I'm not going to waste time here.
I'll be sure not to watch that.
I mean, fair enough. I don't blame you. I was kind of nice to the Falcons, so I don't blame you for not wanting to watch it. But either way, the point is, I would definitely lean more towards Atlanta than Carolina for a team to really threaten the Saints this year. I just have a lot more faith in that offense. And like you said with the Panthers, the weapons, I like Jonathan Mingo. But outside of that, it's certainly tough. Not to mention, got to throw this out there, they have the worst starting fullback in football, and I will die on that hill. Giovanni Ricci is not that guy. But yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting division to watch. If nothing else, the Saints can absolutely benefit from having some lesser competition.
I was going to say, like you asked, the stat that stood out to me the most was probably coverage. You said it was 14th?
Yeah, 14th in coverage EPA per play last year. Yep.
So while that's not like super great, you take into account like what was all present there.
Mm-hmm.
You had a rookie Valente Taylor that was, learning. He had to play against DeAndre Hopkins in his first start, I think. Was that his first start against DeAndre Hopkins?
It was.
Yeah, and then you got Marshawn Lattimore who had an injury that was more of a freak accident than, like the casual Saints injury.
Mm-hmm.
But it was more like a freak accident that you probably won't see happen again. And Paul Debo, who probably took like the biggest step back I've ever seen from a defensive player for the Saints. Well, that and Marcus Davenport, I don't know. It's between them two. So the way that, coverage was still in top 15, that really surprised me. And again, like Jono said, got to give Dennis Allen his flowers for being a good defensive coach. So I don't know if he can put it all together, but, at the very worst, you got a great corner coming back, a top 10 corner, top 7, might even push it, say top 5. I don't know, but you might be able to push those coverage numbers into the top 10 with Marshawn coming back, and I believe Marcus May spent a decent bit of time out, and you brought in Jordan Howden, who I know Miller you really liked.
Mm-hmm.
I like him too, and then now you got who else did they bring in? I like Lonnie Johnson for some reason. I think Lonnie Johnson's going to be like a sneaky good player because I know damn well that room's not going to stay healthy the entire year.
Huh.
I think Lonnie Johnson might be a nice plug-in guy. I've watched him play for the Titans. You know, my friend's a huge Titans fan, so I got to watch Titans games sometimes. And, you know, Lonnie Johnson was pretty decent when I watched him play. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. There's definitely some names in that room that I like a little bit too. I'm with you with Lonnie Johnson, having a guy that you kind of weirdly like. It's not Lonnie Johnson for me. I worded that terribly. I was just trying to say there's another guy in that room that I kind of like, and that's Isaac Yiadom, who I believe was on the Saints last year as well. Was he a re-signing or was he somebody that got brought in? I completely forget because he's on a new team
squad.
Okay, because he's on a new team every 5 minutes. I like him because he had a dominant year for me in a Madden franchise one time, and I try to follow him, but he moves around so much that it's tough. But kind of jumping over and talking about that defense, namely in the secondary, and looking at the type of coverages that were ran by the Saints last year. It was very, very man coverage heavy, and that makes a lot of sense. You've got some good man corners in the room. It's a team that really seems to believe in those corners. And again, I don't blame them. Marshawn Lattimore is great, even though he missed some time last year. Paulson Adebo is pretty solid when he's pretty solid. Alontae Taylor's pretty solid. I get those two mixed up all the time. I don't know why. It's just something that happens. But looking at the types of coverages they ran and how frequent they ran them, they ran cover 0, the 4th most in the league, with 3.7% of their snaps on defense being out of cover 0. They were 4th in cover 1 with 26% of snaps, 18th in cover 2 with 12.4% of snaps, 31st in cover 3 with 19.8% of snaps, which might be a pretty decent indicator of why their run defense was so bad, because a lot of teams in the league have kind of defaulted to cover 3 as a run stopping coverage because you get an extra guy in the box, and it just fits the run very well. So the Saints were the second least in running that last year. Maybe that's a decent indicator of why they were so bad against the run. Maybe we see that change. Maybe we don't. We'll see. They were 7th in quarters with 19.1%, which ends up kind of playing out like man coverage, so it makes sense. 28th in quarter half with 3.3%, and then 3rd in cover 5 with 2.8% of their plays.
What was the last one?
Quarter half. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, they were 28th in quarter half with 3.3% of their snaps on defense.
All I heard was 28 and 3. That's all I
had that in the back of my head too. I was like, hold on.
Oh, I love it.
I like you.
I love it. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. I love it. Listen, I'm all for shit talking. There's not been enough shit talking on this series. Like, I try to stay positive because I'm supposed to be the neutral host. But from all the other fans, by all means, talk as much shit as you want. I love it. I'm here for it.
You asked the right guy if you asked that, because the Falcons can
clearly
kiss my ass with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
I'll be honest. I'm getting a little sick right now hearing all this damn Falcons praise y'all giving. Hell with that, man. Hell with that. Those guys are gonna suck. It's the
You
Falcons,
don't understand.
Now it's the Falcons.
Y'all don't understand.
About season last year, those guys should have easily beat us in week 1, and they allowed us to come in their home. We went down by like 17 points, and in the 4th quarter, Jameis Winston turned into Joe Montana, and we embarrassed them. And I was there. It was a great time. They were, at halftime, and the third quarter swag surfing and all that BS, and then they all walked out to sing where they always walk out after every game with their hands held down saying, God damn it, why am I a Falcons fan?
Yeah, I watched that video. That's probably like the video I like going back and watching the most, because what I like to do around this time, like after the draft, is I like to watch the games back. I like to watch fan reactions back. I like to watch just anything that has to do with the past season. And when I watch that video, I get so happy because the absolute fucking bomb promo that you dropped after the comeback was the funniest shit I've ever heard.
Hey, this shit more
The
than the
shit
game.
more to the game.
This shit more than the game. You might be about to be learning that, Miller. I know you're a Chicago fan, but you might about to be learning that by the end of this episode.
Shit, maybe. We'll have to see.
It's a lifestyle.
But yeah, like I said, just a team that was very much heavy in man coverage. I'm sure that'll stay the same. The cornerback room didn't change too much. A lot of really good man corners in there. Something that might change, though, and I actually want to get your guys' input on this after I list off some of these numbers, is how often the Saints blitzed last year. Because this was a team that was very much reliant on 4 guys getting home. They just rushed their 4, waited for them to get home. There wasn't a lot of blitzing. And they did change it up a little bit. Sometimes it would be 2 of the linebackers would be the 4, but it was always pretty much 4 guys going at the quarterback at any given time. So specifically on third down between the 20s, they were 19th on third and short and blitz percentage with 28.6% of snaps, 24th and third and medium with 24.5% of snaps, and then 25th and third and long with 24.7% of snaps. And the question I have for you guys is there was a little bit of turnover on the Saints defensive line. You had some guys leave, some new guys like Kalen Saunders, Brian Bresee, Isaiah Foskey all come in. Do you think this is something the Saints are going to do again next year where they're not super blitz heavy and not really reliant on the blitz? Or do you think they're going to change it up now that they have new, younger faces in the building that might struggle a little bit more than some of the veterans did?
I think they're going to have to. Go ahead.
I think it's going to kind of stay the same a little bit because when you look at the guys who were brought in, they are more heavily reliant in the run game. So, Colin Saunders is is more reliant in the run game than he is as a pass rusher. Same with Nathan Shepard, and Brian Brezee's kind of like a back and forth. Like I can kind of see the upside in both.
Yeah, you're hoping he can do a little bit of both for sure.
Yeah, but I think Brian Brezee's more of a run defender than anything. And I think that, like you mentioned back when we did the draft reaction, the prototypical guys that the Saints like to go for are the people who have higher upside in run defense, but they kind of coach that pass rush into them. I mean, that's natural, but people like Isaiah Foskey, they come with that pass rush already like built into them. And I don't think Isaiah Foskey's the best run defender. And I think Isaiah Foskey's more of like I don't know how to put this. I know I probably sound like stupid as shit right now, but they're built to be more reliant on run defense, I guess. I don't think basically what I'm saying is I don't think that changes much.
I think it's gonna have to. We've been doing that for a couple years now where we only blitz 4, and for a while it was working for not last year, but the years before it was working for us. But as you get guys getting older, Cameron Jordan's getting up there in age. He's not as reliant as he has been in years past. I know his numbers dipped down a little, not too much, but as he gets older, we got newer guys coming in. I think D-line is definitely our biggest area of need right now. I think they're going to have to change it up, blitz maybe another guy, because I don't see any of the guys that we drafted, Isaiah or Brian, coming in and being able to get to the quarterback like that within this first season. I just don't see it happening. I think they're going to need a little more help.
I agree with Jason, especially because, as he said, our D-line is probably our biggest question mark on the team this year, and a lot of young guys, but nobody really proven, and nobody who I can say even is like, oh, that guy is the next guy. Like we was hoping it would be Peyton Turner, but he's been a dud so far. We've had some guys show flashes like Carl Granderson and Tano, but nothing to make you think that, oh, those guys are ready to become the heir apparent to Cam Jordan. And Cam Jordan is still our best defensive lineman. And obviously, as Jason said, I mean, he's going into his 13th year, I believe. So, like, eventually, for the time starts catching up, right? Like, we can't expect Cam Jordan this year to be the Cam Jordan that we we wanted him to be in, like 2012 and 13 when he was at the peak of his defensive end prowess. So I feel like we have to blitz. The problem is we also don't really have the speed on defense. And one of our beat reporters actually brought that up, that I think is a very underrated facet going into the season that some fans aren't acknowledging. We don't have the fastest defense. So even if we wanted to draw blitzes, I mean, Demario Davis is our best linebacker, but he's also getting those. So I don't know how much of a effective side-to-side linebacker he can be. And he's also battling soft tissue injury right now. P. Werner's a great linebacker. I think P. Werner's a future Pro Bowler / possibly All-Pro, but he's not known as a speed guy. So speed is very, very much a concern for me. As good as I think our defense is, that's a credit to Dennis Allen. Speed is a problem, I think, for our defense, and we're going to have to find some creative ways to caught up some blitzes if we want to get to the quarterback a lot more in 2023. Unless, hopefully, knock on wood, Payne Turner to know Carl Granderson surprises us and takes that leap to being a great player. The dog agrees with me. But if not, we're going to have to get creative with how we send the house to get some pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, Jono, you hit the nail on the head with the speed, because this is a defense that has a lot of older pieces, guys like Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan. These guys are not getting any younger. And the Saints are starting to see a little bit of turnover. Like we mentioned, Isaiah Foskey and Brian Bresee coming in, going to be important parts on the defensive line. But there's still a lot of older talent, a lot of guys that just inherently aren't fast, aren't the most athletic in the world, are a little more reliant on technique or their football IQ or just being aggressive ball players. So that'll definitely be something interesting to watch, especially when you're in a division with some speedy guys like, in Atlanta, you got to deal with Cordero Patterson, you got to deal with Kyle Pitts, different things like that. Scotty Miller's over there now in Atlanta. I swear, I'm not trying to just praise Atlanta. Those were just the first guys that came to mind. Because I'm thinking, like, in Carolina's receiver core, there's a bunch of slow guys out there. Jonathan Mingo's kind of quick. And Atlanta, not Atlanta, Tampa, I don't know what the fuck's going on in Tampa. I'm not going to lie. I'm just trying to keep them out of my mind until I have to talk about them in one of these videos.
Mike Evans is definitely shitting bricks right now.
Their good receivers aren't that fast. Chris Godwin's had 6 leg injuries, so he's not going to be burning anybody. Mike Evans has never been a burner. It's tough. But either way, it'll definitely be something that's interesting to watch for sure, is the speed on that defense. But kind of shifting gears over to the offense, looking at some of the numbers on offense, because my favorite thing in football is a well-executed run game. And unfortunately, the Saints did not have that last year. However, looking at some of the numbers, specifically their splits, like the types of run plays they ran, they were 13th in outside zone with 27% of their runs, 21st in inside zone, with 19% of their runs. They were 19th in duo with 15% of their runs, second in power with 17% of their runs, second only behind Baltimore, by the way, and that's like Baltimore's bread and butter. So that means the Saints were running power a fuck ton. Which is really interesting because you don't see outside zone and power paired together that often, but the Saints definitely ran with it. They were tied for 15th in counter with 6% of their runs, tied for 8th in draw with 4% of their runs, tied for 20th in pin and pull plays with 4% of their runs. So looking at the offense last year, it's weird to speculate for someone who wasn't as tuned in with the Saints as you guys were. I'm going to be honest, I did not watch every single Saints game as they happened last year. I watched a good bit of them in preparation for this video, but one thing I couldn't quite pinpoint is why the run game was so bad. Because on paper, that offensive line should be pretty solid at run blocking. The running back room, pretty solid as well. So what do you guys think was the reason for the Saints' lack of success in the run game last year?
Last year, if we're being honest, you said our running back room was pretty good.
I said it was solid. I didn't say it was good.
Yeah, it was okay, but like Alvin Kamara was out I want to say like 45, maybe 50% of the year. And then even like I can't even think who was our backup to Alvin last year.
Mark Ingram.
Mark, thank you.
Okay,
so
that might explain it.
Like, yeah, he's old as like, come on, like, but I'm not really worried about last year's stats. Like, even when we had Alvin Kamara, when he was healthy, when he was like a rookie, a sophomore, like he's never been a pure rusher. He's always been a back that catches the ball, and we've never had that pure rusher. We had it for a couple years when Alvin Kamara was a rookie, and we had Mark Ingram when he was a little fresher, but he was still older. This year, I genuinely see us having 4 good rushers when Alvin Kamara gets back. If we sign Kareem Hunt, and even if we don't, we have 3 good rushers. We got Jamal Williams, led the league in touchdowns last year on goal line carries. Like, we had Miller, we just drafted. He's a great runner if you watch his college highlights. And then once Alvin Kamara gets back, he's going to get most of the load out of the backfield. So I'm not really worried. I think we upgraded at that spot a significant amount, and there's no worry in my mind.
Yeah. So just to double check myself, I went back and looked at the running backs that the Saints had last year. I must have when I was writing down my notes for this, I must have overestimated rather how much Alvin Kamara played, because he only played in 13 games. And outside of that, you had Dwayne Washington, Devine Ozigbo, Tony Jones, and Mark Ingram. So maybe that's why the Saints were good at running the football.
Well, also, Alvin had a very down year last year.
Yeah.
Even Alvin admitted that. Alvin said it was probably his worst year as a professional. And I mean, it was just one of those Murphy's Law thing. Like it seemed like for a while, everybody on our team was taking a step back, because our offensive lineman definitely took a step back last year as well. So top of Alvin having his worst year, Mark Ingram finally hitting that father time brick wall that all the players try to avoid. Our offensive lineman taking a step back, and our offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael just being very dry and vanilla with some of his offensive schemes. Man, it was just a recipe for disaster. But as Jason alluded to, I am hopeful that Pete Carmichael watched the tape last year and says, okay, I know what I have to improve on. I know we brought John Gruden in, which wasn't the most popular decision, obviously, but there's no morals in football, so it is what it is. I'm assuming John Gruden is going to help us from an offensive standpoint with our running game and with our passing game. And with Alvin Kamara hopefully now having gotten his groove back, especially with the legal issues behind him, with Kendre Miller, fresh legs, hopefully as a rookie he can come in and do some damage, and with Jamal Williams, and then don't forget Taysom Hill. I mean, I think running game
I was going to say, like,
that carries us this season, actually, where Derek Carr doesn't have to be Superman, but we can run the ball very, very effectively into a lot of wins this season. So I'm hopeful. I'm very, knock on wood, hopeful that our run game takes a significant leap this year after the subpar year it had last season.
Understandably so. I will say, anyone out there that plays fantasy football, do not draft any of the Saints running backs this year.
Don't.
My Bears are the same way. I feel your pain. Like, there are 3 to 4 guys on both teams that can get legitimate snaps. So I'm not a big fantasy guy. I play it and I just draft Bears players because I'm a homer. But it's tough for fantasy.
My league, then that would be easy picking.
You say that until Justin Fields and Cole Kmet become the best ones in football.
Justin Fields was the MVP in fantasy last year. The numbers he was putting up.
But yeah, that being said, kind of jumping over to the passing game, you want to talk about vanilla. Andy Dalton was the quarterback last year. And he is, me and Valente have gone back and forth as we have both watched him as a starter firsthand. Him a little bit more than me, because thankfully Andy Dalton didn't last very long as a starter in Chicago. Justin Fields took over pretty quickly. But Andy Dalton was really weird last year, because you think of Andy Dalton, you think game manager. You think somebody that gets the ball out quickly, just runs a very simple offense. On throws under 15 yards, Andy Dalton looked horrible. On throws over 15 yards, he was one of the most efficient passers in football. And there's a pretty obvious reason for that. There was a certain rookie wide receiver that kind of carried. But looking at the numbers specifically, they were 7th in average depth of target. They were 3rd in air yardage percentage, so how many or what percentage of their passing yards came through the air rather than after the catch. 10th in yards per attempt. 6th in big time throw percentage. With that paired with Andy Dalton is fucking mind blowing. I never thought I'd see the day where that man was in the top 10, let alone right outside the top 5. And he also had the 7th fastest average time to throw, so he was still getting it out relatively quickly. It just wasn't very good in the short game. And I think, I'm a big believer in film. Like, I test over everything. So I think Andy Dalton's a prime example of somebody where you look at those numbers and you're like, oh, he must have been pretty good last year. And then you turn on the film and it's like, no, it was Andy Dalton. He just had Chris Olave to chuck it up to every here and there. And Chris Olave was one of the best receivers in football last year. So,
and Rashid
Shaheed definitely had a really solid season last year, exceeded expectations. So I just think the Saints passing game, in retrospect, is really funny. because you had bizarro Andy Dalton getting completely carried by Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed in this very vanilla, basic offense that couldn't run the football. Like, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that or anything you want to add to it, but it's really goofy to look at to me.
Yeah. So for me, I think that the stat doesn't really say it, but like you said, he was like the seventh quickest person to get the ball off.
Mm-hmm.
To me, like throughout the season, I saw that him and Jameis were both indecisive through a lot of their plays. And, you know, a lot of that can be attributed to play calling because play calling was not that great. And like you mentioned with the rushing stat, you're literally trying to make something work that wasn't. So the offense was pretty bad, and I hope Pete Carmichael can bring that around. You know, considering he's a disciple of Sean Payton. I'm optimistic that he can do that. But as far as passing goes, we've had our arguments about Andy. I've kind of lightened up on him a little bit, but I'm also still very on his head about it because I'm acting like I talked to Andy personally, but I'm still very on the ropes with Andy because while he was serviceable at points, there was a lot of times where he played us right out of the game, and there was like times where it'd be 3rd and 8 and he'd throw a 2-yard out route on like plays when there's like fucking Jawan Johnson 15 yards down the field wide open for a catch and run. And specifically the last game of the season, he throws a 2-yard out route on 3rd and 13, I think, when Taysom Hill is like wide open on a corner route, fucking waving his hand. Yeah, he's just like very mid to me, I guess. He's like the epitome of mid, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said Andy Dalton's a good baseline for an NFL quarterback. If your starter's better than Andy Dalton, you're probably feeling pretty good. If he's worse than Andy Dalton, you're probably looking to draft one or trade for one here pretty soon. So I defend Andy Dalton a little bit because he's a great guy and I have a lot of respect for him. But
it's an indictment of Jameis, honestly, that they felt that even when Jameis was finally healthy to go, that they stayed with Dalton. And I think Valente made some great points. I agree. I mean, Andy Dalton is Andy Dalton. Like, it is what it is. We know who he is at this point of his career. I think he was very solid. There was actually some games where he was really good, right? But then there was other games where you see the Andy Dalton experience, and you're like, okay, there's just a cap on what he can do to lead a football team. Ironically, his best game was probably that Tampa Bay second game of the year in Tampa Bay where his receivers was the one setting him up because he was like putting the ball on the money, and I think we had like 4 drops that game, and then of course Tom Brady came in and did the Tom Brady thing. But I don't have any ill will or indifference to Andy Dalton. I think he did a solid job, and I think when any team signs Andy Dalton, the most you can hope for is that he's solid, right? So Carolina has sure. I was hoping that he started the season because I was like, oh man, we could definitely get our licks in on him on Monday Night Football in week 2. But I believe Bryce Young has already been named the starter because Frank Reich was like, nah, we ain't doing that. Andy Dalton BS. We're gonna put Bryce Young to the fire and live and die with whatever happens. But as all fans of somebody who Andy Dalton team has led the way for, it is what it is. Like once you see the Andy Dalton experience, you can describe it, but you can't. Like he's Andy Dalton. Like some games where you're like, whoa, okay, this guy is legit, and there are some games where you're like, oh God, please draft a quarterback, please sign another quarterback. And to his credit, what is it, 13th year, I think, 14. Like so, he's obviously towards the tail light of his career, so you can't really expect much at this point from him, anyways. But solid quarterback, and he did a solid job for us last year.
Yeah, I'd say solid's like the best you can cap that at.
Yeah.
With what he was given and what cards he was dealt, I think that he probably played the best he could, which wasn't bad, but it also wasn't good. It wasn't like great.
Yeah, you're asking a mid quarterback to elevate a team, and that doesn't work.
Now, however, if you give Andy Dalton's level of play if you put Andy Dalton in Gardner Minshew's shoes, let's say you plug Andy Dalton into the Eagles system, I think you might succeed.
Yeah.
Andy Dalton, 2022 Andy Dalton, you put him with the Eagles probably go 17-0. You probably don't lose a game because the games that Gardner Minshew played, you probably don't lose those. Gardner Minshew, I'm not going to compare Gardner Minshew and Andy Dalton because that's just not an argument that I don't think should ever be made.
Dalton's a quarterback that has to be elevated by his offense. He doesn't elevate his offense himself. That's the big thing. And when you have subpar play calling, no run game, and different things here and there, it's tough to expect a lot out of a guy like that. But speaking of the play calling, question I did have for you guys, and it was kind of brought up, is the current status of Pete Carmichael, because he's somebody who has been with the Saints for 15 years as an offensive coordinator, which is insane. Normally, you don't see a coordinator stick around with the team for that long. But as Valente mentioned, his offense was very, very vanilla last year. So is that something that concerns you considering how long he's been with the team, or do you think that was more of a product of the situation last year?
I 100% think that was a product of what pieces we had around the quarterback we had. You said it yourself. He doesn't elevate the team. But if you look at, I honestly think this year our offense, knock on wood, is going to be in the top 15, just with all the pieces we've added, like getting healthier and Derek Carr stepping in. I really do see us being a top 15, and I'm not worried about his play call. I don't think it was his play calling. I genuinely think that there was a lot of games we could have won if we had better play calling, but I genuinely don't think it was on him. He's a great play caller. He always has been. When Drew Brees was there, we always had a great offense. It's always been our defense most years, but I'm not worried about his coaching.
I mean, I could kind of agree with that. Like, there was times last year where you could say, "Oh my God, that was a great play call." Like, but then there was a lot of times last year where you're like, maybe not. Like, maybe he needs to go, right? So, again, I don't think Andy Dalton had any like control of the offense either. I'm pretty sure he didn't have audible permissions or anything like that. Neither did Jameis. I don't think any quarterback since Drew had audible permissions. I don't think that's Pete Carmichael's, not Pete Carmichael's style, but I don't think that's the way that, I feel like Pete Carmichael likes to be in charge of the offense, and I feel like he thinks that the first call is the best call, and you just gotta kind of gotta work with what's given. This is the shittiest way to put this. Oh my God. But no, I don't think Pete Carmichael is a bad coach. I don't think he's a good coordinator. I don't think he's a bad coordinator. I think he's still like, let's figure out where to put him, because again, really bad situation on offense. I don't know how many times I have to say this again for however many years he still plays, but no Michael Thomas. You had a very subpar run game, like we mentioned. It was just overall like a not good offense. I'm not gonna say bad because it wasn't bad. It was mid.
It was pretty mediocre.
Yeah, it's pretty mediocre. It wasn't bad.
I think it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
I mean, the run game was pretty bad, but the passing game was mediocre.
Yeah, it was just a mediocre offense. It's not like
the run game was terrible.
Yeah, but just overall as an offense, it was mediocre. There was nothing you could really say. It had its moments, yeah, for sure. But I really lost my train of thought. I'm kind of just doing shit till I can catch my.
It was definitely inconsistent.
It was absolutely inconsistent. That's a great way to put it.
Well, look, I'll say it's simple. Of course, he looked great when Drew Brees was his quarterback and Sean Payton was in his ear, right? Like, how can you not look great? We're going to have that test with Eric Bieniemy this year. Okay, and you don't have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid now. Let's see how legitimate of an offensive coordinator you are. And it's also easy to look not as good when you got Andy Dalton and a washed-up Mark Ingram as your running back and Dennis Allen as your head coach. So I guess it's kind of last year it was his first test without Sean Payton, and if you just go by the facts, because this is NFL is a facts league, it's not an excuse league, it's a facts league. He failed. Like, we had a horrible offense, he failed. I'm not willing to be too hard on him and act like, okay, he's definitely somebody who has no hopes of being a good offensive coordinator, because I'm sorry, you couldn't have learned anything in your 15 years with Sean Payne and Drew Brees, then something is wrong with you. I gotta feel like he took something away from him that he's going to be able to show now with more talent to show that he can be a better offensive coordinator. And to bring it up again, John Gruden is in the building, and this is probably, in my opinion, one of the worst kept secrets. Like, they're like, "Oh, John Gruden is just there to observe." No, he's not.
No.
He's coaching. Like, he's basically our unofficial offensive coordinator this season. He said we don't want to make it official because we don't want to take that PR backlash because John Gruden is suing the NFL right now. So you asked the question about it is, do we have faith in Pete Carmichael this year? It's the Pete Carmichael and John Gruden show this year. Like, John Gruden is an offensive coordinator for the Saints this year, and I don't want people to lose sight of that. Like, John Gruden will be calling plays. He may not be on the sideline, but I guarantee you the week up, leading to the games, John Gruden will be calling in on Zooms and stuff, giving Derek Carr plays, and it's going to be the John Gruden and Pete Carmichael show this year.
Yeah, that's why I'm really excited about Derek Carr, because that's when he played his best football, was with John Gruden.
Yeah, for sure. Jumping over to the offseason from there and talking about some of the changes that were made. The first change, actually, with another coordinator, is you guys lost your defensive coordinator last year. He left for Atlanta, and you replaced him with Joe Woods, who came over from Cleveland. And I have already spoken to Browns fans. I have that video uploaded. They were ready to throw a parade in the street when I brought up that Joe Woods got fired. So do you guys have any thoughts on hiring him? Are you excited about it? Are you tentative about it? Or are you not that worried about it because Dennis Allen, is going to be running the defense? Or what are your thoughts on the hire?
I'll go first. Dennis Allen is the guy running the defense. So
I
mean, it's honestly how I felt when Pete Carmichael. Sean Payne was calling the plays. Pete Carmichael is the name and title. Joe Woods is the name and title. Dennis Allen is calling the plays. I'm not worried because, again, if there's one thing I would give Dennis Allen is that guy knows how to call a defense. So don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to discredit what any of the coordinators last year did or what Joe Woods is going to do this year, but this is Dennis Allen's defense. He's calling the shots. Joe Woods is going to have his input, but I don't think he's going to be that significant of an addition or a subtraction that it will matter or even worthy of having a conversation, because this is Dennis Allen's defense at the end of the day.
I couldn't have said it better myself, honestly.
All right, jumping into not quite some of the fun stuff, because we're going to talk about the guys that left in free agency first, but then we'll get into the fun stuff. Just looking at free agency and all of the losses you guys had, and I say all of the losses because they were large number, maybe not an impact. But is there any name that stands out to you as someone that hurts to lose, whether it's because you really liked the player, they didn't even have to be great. They were just someone you liked, someone you think is going to make a big impact, someone you're sad left for a division rival maybe, or anything like that.
Yeah, Caden Ellis. I hate that he went to the Falcons because he showed some flashes, and I kind of lose sleep. I'm like, God, I hope this is not a Trey Hendrickson situation where we've seen the guy blossom, and it's like, maybe we should have done our best to keep that guy when he showed that he was about to take that leap. And at least Trey went to the Bengals, right? It's like, okay, go ahead, Trey, go shine with the Bengals. But with Caden, because he showed some flashes last year, and if he takes that leap with the Falcons, that would suck. That's honestly the only one that really, I was like, damn, that one sucked. The rest, again, there were some good depth players that we lost and whatnot, but nothing that made me feel like, oh man, that's really going to be a hit to our team. Caden Ellis is the one that we have the potential to look back on and be like, how in the hell did we let him go to the Falcons?
I think for me, just to be a little different and kind of provide different insight, I'm going to say David Onyemata, only because he was reliable as a run stopper and even as a pass rusher in between sometimes. He was just someone that you could plug in and he rarely ever failed. It was something that, as a Saints fan, watching from home rather than in the stadium, because when you're in the stadium, you probably just see, I don't know, I've been to one game, so when you're in the stadium, you probably just see the sack happen, you don't even you just move forward, next play. But for me, when I watched David Onyemata, David Onyemata was kind of like my, what's the word for it again? The Star Wars TikTok.
Oh my God, the Glup Shido thing.
Yeah. David Onyemata is kind of like my Glup Shido. I don't know if you want to explain that But
It's a goofy name that people use to make fun of Star Wars fans when they get too excited over a random background character, because every Star Wars character has the dumbest name possible. So there was a tweet a long time ago that went viral, and someone got excited over seeing a background character in it, and someone quote tweeted and said Star Wars fans be like, OMG, Glup Shittos in the new movie. So I made a joke a while back to Valente that some people have NFL Glup Shittos, which is just a random player you really like. Like for me, it was Dane Sanzenbacher for the Bears, and apparently for Valente.
There you go.
Right, exactly. That's kind of the idea. I think David Onyemata might be a little bit above that, but I get what you're saying.
I think personally, I think Onyemata took a step back last year. So again, the only thing is that okay, damn, he went with the Falcons too. It's like why are all these people? I mean, Shai Tuttle went to the Panthers. It's like why are all these division rivals signing out damn players? But I also am not gonna act like if Shai Tuttle went to the Bears or if David Onyemata went to the Jets or something, I'd be like, damn, what a big loss. Like the only thing about those two losing is like, damn, we went to a division rival. That's gonna suck. But
let me rephrase the way I put that.
I got a question for Valente and Jason Allen. Nobody feels the loss of Marcus Davenport?
No. Look, there was a time.
0.5 sacks in a contract year. You know, that's the year where you're like, oh, this guy gonna go off because he trying to get that payday. 0.5 sacks. Oh God.
Hearing you guys talk about Marcus Davenport gives me so much hope because he went to the Vikings, and Vikings fans are way too excited about him.
What?
Yeah.
Talk your shit, then.
How do you get excited about it?
I will say this: his best games have been against the Vikings, so they might have some bias with that. That's all they know of him.
True.
He has his best games, but no. That's one. I am a Sean Payne apologist to the death. But the one thing I will never forgive him for is Lamar Jackson was right there first, and this motherfucker took fucking, excuse the language, Marcus Davenport. I'm like, dude.
No, I think that's a perfectly valid reason to call somebody a motherfucker right there.
Right there. What the hell? And that's set off. Imagine we had Lamar Jackson now. One, Sean Payne would still be here. So,
good point.
I think might change the trajectory of our franchise, but I digress.
Do you understand how much Lamar Jackson would be like better just as a player sitting behind Drew Brees for however long he stayed? Like Lamar Jackson practically just got thrown to the wolves. He sat behind Joe Flacco for like 8 weeks. Just imagine, look at what happened with Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, a lot of that is probably Sean Payton too, but look at what happened with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom. You know, Sean Payton.
I always say Sean Payton can put me at quarterback and get a decent game out of me. I believe Sean Payton is a quarterback whisperer. So if Sean Payton had Lamar Jackson, I mean, Lamar Jackson might have 2 MVPs by now. It's actually why I kind of have a little bit of faith in Denver this year that Russell Wilson is definitely going. I mean, I'm like Sean Payne made Teddy Bridgewater a $70 million contract the next year because of how he had Teddy Bridgewater performance. So I can't see Russell Wilson being that bad 2 years in a row, especially with Sean Payne as his play caller now. That 2018 draft night when Sean Payne decided to outsmart everybody in the room and say, oh, this unknown kid from this small college is going to be the next great defensive end, and we're going to skip on Lamar Jackson for that hurt our team a lot.
You know, as a Louisville fan, that hurts me. Teddy Bridgewater not being anything, and then Lamar not being taken by the Saints, that hurts me.
That's tough for sure.
You should. I mean, really, y'all have been looking for a franchise quarterback for decades now. So, I mean, I know y'all got Justin Fields now, so y'all finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I know you're listening to this I know about that. You know, the whole looking for a quarterback.
I know it all too well.
He knows about skipping over good quarterbacks. He knows about his team skipping over good quarterbacks, seeing how he took.
All right.
Oh my God.
Trubisky over Mahomes. I know. I've heard it 100 times. I get it. It happened. Whatever. Okay.
I have a question for you. I know this is our episode, but when that happened, because we're all fans, so we're like, oh man, hell yeah, Mitchell Trubisky over Mahomes. What y'all talking about? Were you like one of those fans, or were you like, ooh, I don't know, guys?
Okay. In my defense, when that happened, I was in the 8th grade, and I didn't know a lot about college football. And I'm a UNC guy for basketball. I don't watch a lot of college football outside of scouting, so I don't follow a team. But for basketball, I'm a UNC guy. So I remember I saw, quarterback from North Carolina. That's cool. I wanted Jamal Adams, but I'll take that, I guess. And I'm trying to, like, if you remember during that season, not a lot of people were high on Mahomes. It came out that the Saints were really high on Mahomes, ironically, like right
Don't
after the
remind
draft.
me.
And a lot of people were like, why? What do they see in the kid? And now he's probably the most talented player to ever touch football.
Yeah.
But yeah, that year I wanted the Bears to draft Jamal Adams and then take Brad Kaya in the second round. And I thought that was going to be the Bears' answer at quarterback. So that tells you where I was at in 2017. And I mean, listen, I was the biggest Mitchell Trubisky guy on the planet. I loved the kid. He was great. He was charismatic. He said all the right things. He made us feel good. And then eventually I came to the conclusion, like, wait a minute, this guy can't play football. And then I thought we were going to have to suffer through a year of Andy Dalton because we signed Andy Dalton in the offseason when we had this great offseason of being hyped up on all these different quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson before everything came out, Derek Carr, ironically. Every quarterback you can think of that could have been available, I was like, he's a Bear, he's a Bear, he's a Bear. And then it was Andy Dalton. I was like, fuck me, dude. And then we drafted Fields and it all made up for it. Because I said I was the biggest Trubisky guy. I'm an even bigger Fields guy. So given my track record, maybe he'll suck, but I don't see it happening.
I like Fields a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing his progression as a passer this year. We know he's going to be lethal as a runner, but
he has receivers now. So
I have very high hopes for him this year. It's going to be he's one of my top 5 non-Saints players that I'm excited to see. So I feel like this is kind of a big year for him. Like, are you that guy, or are you kind of just going to be middle of the pack? And I think this is going to be the year we find out.
Well, you guys know better than anybody the receiver he's got to throw to this year. That's pretty damn good at catching the football. So he's all right. Yeah.
Hey man, I can respect that. Panthers might be the only team I could actually like praise without
Listen, he's out of Carolina now. You can say nice things about him and not feel.
I don't know. Carolina's been so damn quiet the past few years. Like, it's not even fun talking trash about them. But no,
that's how I always feel about the Lions.
I don't think more is. I feel like Panthers fans overrated him, to be honest. They would be like, oh, he's one of the top.
Which is so ironic because now that he's out of Carolina, he's not good.
Right. To me, he was always in that. Honestly, as far as Derek Carr, wide receivers, like in that middle of the pack, which is good. Not everybody's going to be in that elite echelon. But I definitely think he's he's obviously a potential 1,000-yard receiver, and not everybody's going to be Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. So I think I'm cheering for you guys in NFC North, especially because it seems to be a bit. I mean, I don't know how you feel. This, in my opinion, the Detroit Lions hype is getting way too crazy, and I know the floor for them is so low that them winning 8 of the last 10 games and not even making the playoffs, but I was like, oh my God, we got to make them an opening week against the Chiefs. We got, that's the greatest team. Like after the Eagles and the 49ers, they're the team to beat in the NFC. I'm like, I'm cheering for Detroit because I actually, as a fan of a team who has gone through those dark ages, but I'm like, I'm also starting to get a little bit annoyed with all this Lions hype. Like, calm down, guys. They haven't even made the playoffs. Like, what are we doing here with this Lions hype?
I just love Dan Campbell.
He's very entertaining.
Yeah. Another Sean Payton product.
Yeah, it's tough with the Lions because, like, I get why everyone's excited about them. They've got some exciting names. They've got some exciting personalities. But I do agree. The hype's getting a little overblown. And maybe that's some bias on my end as an NFC North fan. I try my best to stay unbiased, but it's tough. I think the Vikings are the team to beat in that division, if I'm being totally honest. I'm more worried about them than anybody.
I feel like I'm sorry. We're turning this into an NFC North discussion.
No, you're good. You're totally fine.
The Vikings always, though. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I feel like with Kirk Cousins, there has always been playoffs, not playoffs, playoffs, not playoffs. So last year was playoffs. I feel like that means it's not a playoff year, which means the window is open for either you guys, if Justin Fields takes the lead, or Detroit. I'm assuming the Packers are going to take a step back too, because I have this theory that you don't lose a Hall of Fame quarterback and then just act like everything's hunky-dory, right? I mean, very rarely do you go from a Hall of Fame quarterback to another Hall of Fame quarterback. And the Packers, ironically, were one of those teams when Brett Favre left and then Rodgers came in. But the odds of them going from Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback and everything just staying afloat, it's very low, especially after they were the recipients of that rare combination of back-to-back Hall of Famers the past, 25 years. So I feel like now Green Bay takes a step back. It opens the door for Detroit and Chicago. And I think because I like Justin Fields so much, I'm kind of low key cheering for the Bears. But I also want the Detroit fans to cheer for something too, because again, I like cheering for teams that don't have that much success. But the hype for the Lions has just been a little too much for my liking. I'm like, calm down, guys. They didn't even make the playoffs last year.
That's valid. Jason, you didn't get to say whether or not there was somebody in that left in free agency that you're upset about or not. And I mean, like Jono and Valente said, there's not a lot of names, but there could be somebody for you.
Honestly, not really. I was like Jono said, I'm hurt that like all of our guys left for division rivals, dude. Like we had like the 4 go to the Falcons and then the 2 go to the Panthers. Like I think we had more players go to the in division rivals than we did any other teams. Like I don't know. I just. How can you be on it? I know they're chasing their bag, which is good for them. You're getting millions of dollars to go play, but like, how can you like sit there hating a team for that many years and just be like, we're gonna face you 2 times a year? Like, okay,
money talks.
We'll have fun.
Hell yeah, right. Shit, let the Falcons give me a $75 million contract. This shit gonna be red and black. I'm sorry, money talks.
I'm over here trying to convince myself that I wouldn't do that, but it's hard.
Like I said, money. I mean, Green Bay just had 2 tight ends leave and go to Chicago, so money talks.
I hear what Jason's saying, but we got to realize that these players don't grow up Saints fans, right? It's all the business to them at the end of the day. So David Onyemata and Shai Tuttle, they when they're in the city, they obviously embrace it, which is all you can ask for as a fan. But they don't have any loyalty, or they don't have any, disdain or hatred like we have for division rivals. So yeah, when it's free agency time and we're offering maybe a $6 million contract and Carolina comes back and says, well, we'll give you $12 million. It's an easy choice. It's just common business sense, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
I don't blame them.
Maybe I'm just tripping a little bit, but I feel like it's also like they're like, I'm not saying they're nobodies, but like the players we lost, they're like, I'll say it, they're nobodies. Caden Ellis was a good player that showed flash, but like everyone else, obviously they're good. They made it to the NFL. Props to you, but like you're never gonna see like a Drew Brees type of player go to a division rival. You just never see it. I mean, you've seen it a couple times in history, but it just doesn't happen. I feel like those top tier players have a little respect.
Well, because those top tier players have a lot more places to pick from.
They get the money. The team keeps them by giving them the money. That's why Drew Brees would never get the chance to have gone.
Mm-hmm.
I hear what Jason's saying though.
I don't think Drew Brees would have left if that was the case anyway.
Oh no, you don't for Drew Brees a bag, man.
Drew's about his money now. I mean, Drew has like 20 endorsements and commercials, and Drew is always about his money. So, completely off subject, different sport, but I was a ball boy for the Pelicans for 13 years, the Hornets/Pelicans. Trust me when I say this is a business to these players, right? Like, yeah, they team pride, and yeah, we got to whoop the division rival ass, but at the end of the day, they about their paper. And I am pretty sure that travels, not just in the NBA, but to the NFL, to the MLB, and to the NHL. So I never take it personally when a player leaves for a division rival, especially when that division rival offers more money. Now, if say we offered the same contract and they left, then Jason's point will be extremely valid to me. But when these teams have more cap money than us and are offering these guys more money, it's a common sense move for Onyemata, for Shai Tuttle, for Caden Ellis, But hey, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So I appreciate that Carolina and Atlanta want to be us so bad. Hopefully they can continue to watch us from the top of the division this year.
For sure. Just kind of running through some of the other names just so they get their moment to shine. Marquez Callaway and Adam Troutman, both with the Broncos now. Troutman got traded. Contavious Street left. Andy Dalton's gone. Marcus Davenport, you guys mentioned, is gone, thankfully. Some other names here: David Johnson, Chris Harris Jr., Mark Ingram, Jarvis Landry. And then after that, it falls off into a lot of like Jason said, nobodies. I hate to bring that word up with NFL players, but they really are nobodies. Like Chase Hansen, Albert Huggins, Nick Vannett, Dwayne Washington, Daniel Sorensen, PJ Williams, Deontay Hardy, Justin Evans, Shai Tuttle, who already got brought up, and then Ethan Greenidge. Like, it really wasn't a bad year for free agent losses for the Saints by any means. Some names that are maybe recognizable, but nobody that's going to be the end of the world. I'm definitely with you guys there. it gets a little more exciting when you talk about some of the free agents that got kept around. And one of them is someone I actually want to ask you guys about a little more in depth, and that is Michael Thomas, who got what was it, a 1-year extension that he got? I can't remember off the top of my head.
It was a cut down or something like that. Like they took he had like 3 years left on his contract or something, 2 or 3, and they cut it to just 1 or something.
Okay. So just because Michael Thomas is such a, Valente kind of alluded to it earlier, kind of such a wishy-washy player at this point in his career. How do you guys feel about him as a whole, and then specifically going into next season?
I don't think there really is anything to feel. I think it's just like, okay, show up, then I'll feel something. I think I'm kind of numb to him at this point.
Yeah, no, I completely
That's fair.
agree. I love the guy. MT was one of the most exciting players to watch 3 or 4 years ago when he was healthy. I'll always support him, even if he left. I'd support him. But at this point, I'm looking at Chris Olave, seeing even if Michael Thomas came back, Chris Olave is our number one. I don't even want to give it back. Even if he came back 75%, Chris Olave is our guy now. I'm moving on to the future. That's Chris Olave. Another guy that we got, A.T. Perry, I'm super excited about. So he can come back average. He can come back his same self. I'm looking forward.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's crazy to use the word future, right? Like, okay, Chris Olave is the future because Michael Thomas is only 30 years old and he's still supposed to be in the peak of his career. So that hurts me, honestly, because I'm a big Michael Thomas fan. He's one of the ones that I have a personal bias with. So this is the personal bias in me talking. I don't know if I can answer this objectively. Like,
fair.
I look at him and I'm like, no, like you're 30 years old. There's no way that you are already an injury-ridden player. Like you're not supposed to be at 30 years old. 32 is like that sweet spot when wide receivers start getting to that age where you're like, okay, but 30, I'm like, no, Mike, you're supposed to have at least 2 more amazing years left in your career. And unfortunately, he's such a physical player that, the injuries have added up, but they also haven't been crazy injuries that is like it was a sprained ankle that apparently was the worst sprained ankle of all time, right? And then
it just turned into something more.
And it's like these are injuries that should not be taking what was a potential Hall of Fame career until now you're a discarded player. So I'm not going to lie here and say I'm expecting Michael Thomas of 2019 to come on our team anymore. I do think that he is very capable of still having maybe 4 or 5 times a game this season, a 10-catch, 100-yard game. But I do agree that this is probably going to be the year where Olave takes the mantle as the number 1 receiver. But my personal bias makes me still think that Michael Thomas can be a damn good player. And I'm just hoping from a fan standpoint that he can make it through the whole season, man, because again, like Jason said, that the dude was exciting. He was a trash talker, which I love. I love that he just had – it felt like all 31 fan bases hated this guy. Slam boy, and I do what I would.
He was a character.
And I'm like, yeah, y'all can call him slam boy and tell your team to stop it. Like, if all he does is slants, then how come y'all teams can't stop it? Oh, boy, I love Michael Thomas. I just love that his no prisoners attitude that he had. He's an asshole. Michael Thomas is an asshole, right? Like, we can all agree with that. But he was our ass. He is our asshole. So I was very excited that we kept him because I still have hope that he can be a good, not even inside. I think he can be a good player. I think he can still be a Pro Bowl player, honestly. Now, that might be biased, but I think he could be a Pro Bowl player. Do I think he's ever going to be an all-pro again? Probably not. I would not be surprised if he is, but I do think he can still be a good player, and I'm just hoping that this dude stays healthy this year because if we get just a good Michael Thomas that stays healthy, I guarantee you we will make the playoffs. Like that I would sign it right now, guarantee we will make the playoffs. Unfortunately, though, we just can't say that because we just don't know, like, is this dude past his prime or is his body breaking down or not? But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that he gives us a good year.
No,
I'm gonna rephrase.
I wanted to rephrase a little as well. I think it's just kind of tiring. You know, the last 3 years we're sitting here like Michael Thomas is coming back this year. Let's go. Like he's healthy.
Right.
Like let's go. We saw what he did game 1 of last year against the Falcons. he had 2 touchdowns, 80 something yards. Like that catch to end the game was amazing. Like we've seen flashes of it. And you said something about like his ankle sprain. To his credit, it was a high ankle sprain, which is a lot worse. From someone who's had a high ankle sprain, it kept me out of soccer for a year. So I know that injury very well. It is a serious injury, but like just it shouldn't have lasted 3 years. I think there was a little more going on that we knew about than it was his toe or whatever. Like I think I'm tired of waiting around for this guy. Like I met Michael Thomas, it was at a meet and greet with the Saints. He's one of my all-time favorite players, but at some point you kind of just got to be like, okay, we need to look forward. If he comes back, great. If not, we got to move on, start looking at other options. And I think we have a great one in Chris Olave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to rephrase what I said earlier about being numb to Michael Thomas. By that I mean like I'm like Jason said, we've sat for a long time and waited for him to come back, and we've all been excited. I'm still a big fan of Michael Thomas. That's never changed. I'm a big fan of who Michael Thomas is as a person, but I feel like as a player, is he a player? Like I'm waiting for him to be a player again, And I think, like Jono said, if we can get, or like Jono and Jason said, if we can get week 1, 2022 Michael Thomas consistently, I think you got a good team, a good consistent week 1 stat line for Michael Thomas each week, and then his occasional, breakout 100-yard games, 11 catches like he did in 2019. I think you just guarantee a playoff spot. But again, rephrasing, I'm a big Michael Thomas fan. I'm not shutting anything down about Michael Thomas. I think Michael Thomas is probably still like a top 5 favorite Saint for me currently, but I'm just numb to the way I present my feelings about him, I guess.
Yeah. And I get that. I mean, you can only take so much from a player, right? I think it's really ironic though, with the Michael Thomas thing is that, if he came back and all he could do is run slants, like everyone said he could only do back in the day, then I think you'd be pretty happy with that. And I think it's both sad and, from the outside looking in, hilariously ironic that that's essentially all you need from the guy at this point. It's just for him to come in, run a couple short routes, just be a consistent target, and just stay on the field, right? You're not asking him to be Superman. You're not asking him to be the superstar. You've got that in Chris Olave. You just need consistency. You just need somebody who can consistently get the ball in their hands and pick up a few yards. So I think the whole Michael Thomas situation's pretty ironic right now. I hope he does come back. I hate to see a player get completely derailed by injuries, even if I will admit back in the day I wasn't necessarily Michael Thomas's biggest fan. I just hate to see anybody have to go out with a bunch of injuries. Like I would hate to see even Aaron Rodgers have his career completely derailed by injuries. And I'm a Bears fan. I think we all know how I feel about that, man. So it's really tough. But looking at some of the other free agents that were kept around by the Saints, you've got Andres Pete, the offensive lineman, tight end Juwan Johnson, who Valente and I have kind of had a little bit of a back and forth with on Twitter. And defensive tackle Malcolm Roach, quarterback Jameis Winston, and then some smaller names like offensive tackle Yasir Durant, linebacker Andrew Dowell, right guard Calvin Throckmorton, which is the best name in all of football, punter Blake Gillikin, wide receiver Keith Kirkwood, linebacker Ty Summers, my boy cornerback Isaac Yadam, safety JT Gray, kicker Will Lutz, and then, of course, the edge rusher who you guys have referenced a few times, and I refuse to say the name of because I'm going to absolutely butcher it if I try to, and I feel like it would be straight up disrespectful if I did. I believe it's Tanoa is how you say his first name? Tanyo? Tanyo. Okay.
I call it Tanoa, so.
There you go.
Okay,
however you say his name. I swear I mean no disrespect. I just don't want to butcher the man's name on the internet and have that out there. I was telling them beforehand, I suck with names. I mispronounced Chris Olave's name for 4 months leading up to the draft, the year he was drafted. I was calling him Chris Olave, and I feel like such a moron looking back at it, but it is what it is. Names are hard, right? But jumping over to the additions and free agency, and then we can talk about the draft. The big name here is obviously Derek Carr. So How do you guys feel about him? Do you think he's going to be good enough to kind of move the Saints? He had a down year last year with the Raiders. There was a lot going on over there. We talked about that in the Raiders video, but just what are your thoughts on him right now as a starter for the Saints?
I think Derek Carr is what has me so excited. Yes, he had that down year, but let's look where he was playing. Like, he's playing for probably the most dysfunctional franchise ever. Like,
well, the Commanders existed, but yeah, close.
The Commanders do exist,
they were one of them. Sorry, I just got to take as many shots at Dan
2.
Snyder as I can. Yeah. True.
Nah, you're all good. It's really 1 and 2, but I think Derek Carr can't. I think my predictions for him is I think he's going to be a Kirk Cousins. I think Derek Carr is going to have a great season. I think he's going to be in that MVP voting. I don't think he'll win it, but I think he'll be good enough where he's in the voting like Kirk Cousins is every year, because you always have that one guy that's like good enough. And I think his weapons around him are amazing. I know it's a little off topic, but you mentioned his name, and I'm so happy you did, because he's probably my favorite player on the team right now. Juwan Johnson is an amazing tight end. I love that guy. I'm so glad we kept him. He's so vital to our team. Taysom Hill is great, but Juwan Johnson is, if not, in my opinion, the best tight end when it comes to purely catching the ball. Taysom Hill is obviously our army knife, but back to Derek Carr, I think that he will and can be good. I just think it depends on injuries. I think it depends on if we can stay healthy, like the players we have around him, but I honestly have no worries.
Yeah, I think Derek's gonna do pretty well, because you got to take in everything that he had to, face in Vegas and Oakland. There was a lot of stuff kind of holding not only him back, but the team back as well. He's never had a defense above 19th, and that, I think that was 2016 was his peak defense. And even last year, probably the worst year of his career. People like to make the argument that he had Devontae Adams and did nothing with it. Well, like, literally everyone else on the team was injured. Like, Hunter Renfrow was gone. Darren Waller was gone. You had to rely on Foster Moreau to step up, which I love to pick up Foster Moreau, by the way. I think that him and Derek Carr have great chemistry. He's going to be a great security blanket for him. But looking at how everything played out for Derek Carr last year, I think that he's in a better situation now than he was last year. So I don't think we're going to get 2016, Derek Carr back. I don't think we're even going to get top 10 Derek Carr back. But I think that you can get a good Derek Carr. You can get a Kirk Cousins Derek Carr, like Jason said.
When I evaluate quarterbacks sometimes, especially ones that are potentially going to be playing for my team, I look at, okay, let me see them during their best season and let me see them during their worst season, so I can kind of see what the ceiling is and what the floor is. Obviously, last year was Derek Carr's floor. Now, thankfully, we've seen what his ceiling is, and he was an MVP candidate. Now, that was years ago, right? In the NFL, years go by like dog years. Like 2016 is like 50 years in NFL years. But we've seen what his ceiling is, that it can give you the hope that, oh, this guy clearly has the talent to be a top quarterback in his league. As Jason and Valente just said, if he falls into that Kirk Cousins, Daniel Jones category where he's like middle of the pack, that's absolutely fine, right? Because, it's a tough thing for a football fan to watch a Hall of Fame quarterback for 15 years like we were blessed to watch with Drew Brees, and then go through this quarterback excursion that we've been through, where we've had to now watch Taysom Hill, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, Ian Book. I think Valente was quarterback for one game. I mean, that's how many quarterbacks we've gone through since Drew Brees has retired. So
I might have been.
As long as fans aren't, expecting Drew Brees type performance from him, I think everybody should be very satisfied, because I do think Derek Carr has, maybe this is biased, more structure here in New Orleans and more talent overall now, right? Like, one of my biggest concerns with him is that he very much, though, franchise or not, he just struggles in the red zone. Like, that has nothing to do, in my opinion, with the franchise around him. Like, he just he sucks in the red zone. Definitely last year. Oh, he had some horrible things in the red zone, which is why I feel like the Saints made a very conscious effort to bring in a lot of red zone targets, right? Jamal Williams, Foster Moreau, as Valente alluded to, Jimmy Graham, not Taysom Hill. Like that to me was a very, very conceited effort by the team to say, Derek Carr, we are giving you red zone weapons so that you don't struggle the way you did last year. And if he can just, improve with the red zone targets he has now, then he should definitely, he can arguably be, in my opinion, a top 10 quarterback this season. I'm not saying he's going to be. I'm not saying he's for sure a top 10 quarterback overall, but I do think he has the potential to deliver us a top 10 overall quarterback season this year, and I'm very excited to see what he can do. You mentioned earlier, Miller, how like Mitchell Trubisky said the right things and things like that. With Derek Carr's doing the same thing. Like he's saying the right things. He's getting fans excited. He's making it seem like he's definitely somebody who can be a leader of the team. Because quarterback performance is a lot more than just on the field. You got to be able to lead the men. And it seems like Jameis was a little wishy-washy. Like for a fact, it looks like Michael Thomas wasn't buying into Jameis Winston as a leader. Michael Thomas seems to be buying absolutely 100% all in with Derek Carr as a leader. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'll be honest. I remember like the dark started coming in Saints fans' heads in December when Derek Carr got benched and everybody was like, oh, y'all know it's coming, right? Like Dennis Allen's going to go grab his quarterback from Oakland. And it's funny because a lot of the fans were like, hell no, we don't want no Derek Carr. No, it'll kill me if we sign Derek Carr. And it just shows you how fanaticism is crazy, right? Because then we signed Derek Carr in February, and everybody's like, hell yeah, we got Derek Carr. Let's go. I actually did a video. I don't know if you watch my content, but I like to poke fun of fanaticism and how crazy fans are. So I did a little video of how Saints fans were about Derek Carr before he signed with us and how Saints fans are with Derek Carr now. But genuinely, I do think that he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback. But I think his floor is falling in that Kirk Cousins category, which will be more than happy with me. I would gladly sign up for that. That's what his worst quarterbacking is that he's going to be in the Kirk Cousins level, because that should be, in my opinion, in 2023 at least, good enough for us to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I was going to say Derek's like the reason he sucks so bad in the red zone is because he relies heavy on his arm strength and the deep ball. Like I'm pretty sure he has the Raiders, but Derek also had the highest depth of target by any quarterback. And also along with the tight ends, Derek's best moments in the red zone were with the tight ends. So you got guys like Juwan, who's proven to be a good red zone threat, along with Foster, who I've mentioned before, and I'm pretty sure we all know is his security blanket. So, I think Derek Carr can improve in the red zone. I don't think he's going to be elite in the red zone by any means, but I do think that there is a world and there's more of a possibility that we do see a better Derek Carr this year than we did last year. I feel more confident in getting a better Derek Carr than the same Derek Carr that we saw last year.
We were talking about something earlier, and we said Derek Carr is by far the best quarterback in the NFC South. One thing that I think we're missing is that let's look at the NFC. He might be top 3, top 4 quarterbacks in the NFC when we think about it. And I feel like that just guarantees us that playoff spot. Like, I feel like I'm not saying if you look at our schedule this year, I don't want to jump ahead, but like our schedule is, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th easiest schedule in the NFL. I think we have like the Eagles schedule last year, how they just had no real threats to them. So as long as we play like I think we are, I think it's a guaranteed playoff lock as long as Derek Carr is serviceable.
Yeah. When I look at the schedule, this might be my bias, but there's no real game where I could say, oh yeah, they're losing that for sure. There's a world where you could see them winning that game. Like
who did
last
they play
year,
out of the AFC?
The only one.
Jaguars, Colts, Titans.
They played the South. Okay, then that's fair. I couldn't remember what AFC teams they had on their docket, but it's the AFC South.
Right quick on Jason's point, because I know we might be running over time. I do think that, because I know some fans were arguing when we did sign Carr that, he might be a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Yes and no, I feel like. If he lives up to his potential, then yeah, he's definitely a top 5 quarterback. But I feel like a lot of other fans can look at their quarterbacks and like, Miller, I assume you will be like, hell no, Derek Carr's not better than Justin Fields. You definitely will be like, I'm not taking Derek Carr Derek Carr over Justin Fields.
Carr,
right?
sure.
I'm sure
Before
Lions
that,
fans are like, hell no, Derek Carr's not better than Jared Goff. Rams fans are like, hell no, Derek Carr's not better than Matt Stafford. Vikings fans are like, hell no, Derek Carr's not better than Kirk Cousins. So Seahawks fans are like, hell no, Derek Carr's not better than Geno Smith. So that's kind of a shit. 49ers fans might be like, hell no, Brock Purdy's not. Derek Carr's not better than Brock Purdy.
and we look at those 49ers fans and we laugh.
It'll be it'll be interesting. I can see the argument that Derek Carr's a top 5. I want to say top 3, Jason, a top 5 quarterback in NFC, but I feel like a lot of fans are probably looking at their quarterbacks and saying, my quarterback is also a top 3, top 4 quarterback in the NFC. So we'll see.
Because the problem is the NFC doesn't have these crazy
right now, NFC wise.
Who are they?
Jared Goff. I'm so high on Jared. I think he needed to get out of LA, but I'm really high on him.
Okay.
Matthew Stafford, if he goes back, I want to see him play a little bit before, I make that decision. And then I'm forgetting one or two guys. I'm not taking Justin yet, but
Jalen Hurts.
Fair.
He's close.
I was gonna say you're missing top 2 guys for me.
Prescott.
Why can't I'm thinking for some
Dak and
some
Hurts
reason
are the
I'm
top 2 in the
blanking on-
NFC for me.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
not
I'm
taking
completely
Dak. I'm not
blanking on
taking Dak.
somebody.
Sorry.
Jason,
Hurts.
Jason, I feel like that's the bias coming in, because if Dak was the same, we would be like, he's easily the top 2 quarterback.
No. I don't
I don't
want
think,
Dak.
I don't understand. I truly don't understand the flat. I don't think Dak is elite. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's a very good quarterback, and I would have been more excited. This was never going to happen, but like if we somehow got Dak Prescott, I would have been much more excited and high on the team than I would have been with us getting Derek Carr. No offense to Derek Carr, I just think Dak Prescott is a real good quarterback, and maybe it's because he's a Cowboy, so that the expectations are super high when you have to wear those ugly ass colors. But Dak Prescott is a good quarterback. He's not elite. He's not Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson level, but he's a good quarterback.
He's arguably the best pocket passer right now, if you ask me.
He's good.
Yeah. Like I think for me, I love Derek Carr. I've always been a Derek Carr guy. He's a great human being. Seems like such a fun, caring guy. Like I said, when he was in talks for the Bears to potentially get him, I was all for it. I was fighting hard. I said, Derek Carr is the guy. He's going to help us finally beat the Packers, this, that, and the other. Last year, Derek Carr scares me a lot because not only was the red zone an issue, but his pocket presence seemed to take a big step back. His mechanics were having issues. And I feel like a lot of that can be chalked up to confidence and things going on around him. And I'm hoping to God he comes back out and has a great season, because I'm one of the biggest non-Raider or Saint fan or Fresno State fan, Derek Carr fans out there. I love the guy. But I would be lying if I said I'm not concerned. Also, to your point, Jason, me personally, just because I got to throw this out there, I'm taking Hurts, Dak, Kyler, Geno, Kirk, not Fields yet, but I don't think it'll take long for me to want to put Fields up there. However, if we're talking last year, Derek Carr, then I'm taking Fields over him. Goff is iffy. Stafford, if he's healthy, for sure. So, like, I would say he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFC. It's so hard for me to remove Carr from last year. Like, if we get prime Derek Carr next year, if we find out everything last year was just confidence, his mind was in the completely wrong place, then it's a different story. But I think we're going to find out it was a mix of a couple different things, and I don't think we're going to get the exact Carr back. But even just game manager Carr, like we've already talked about with how bad the NFC South is and how bad the NFC at large is, this is a playoff team.
Maybe it's just bias. There was a couple names you threw out there that I can't see, like Geno Smith. I think he had a great year last year, but that was 1 year after being a backup for 6 or 7 years.
Fair. I understand that,
but no, I just like the whole Derek Carr swag. I'm bought in, the whole like 2 years ago in the playoff game or not the playoff game, but the last game of the season with the Chargers, timeout thing. Like, I just bought in. I'm bought in, and I'm excited.
Yeah,
he's got that white boy swag. I respect it. I love Derek Carr. Like I said, I'm a big Derek Carr fan.
We as a fan base trashed Jameis Winston throughout his whole Bucs tenure. And when he put on that black and gold, we were like, oh, this guy is the guy. So it doesn't take much to convince a Saints fan about the quarterback. But,
bias is valid. I get it completely.
Hey, that's what being a fan is all about, though, right?
Exactly.
Especially in August. Like, this is the time to be at your highest optimism.
Exactly.
So
Everybody looks great in training camp.
Right.
Everybody's at their peak.
Anybody who has faith in their team right now, you're supposed to. Like, why would you be a fan of a team if you're just going to always be constantly in a shitty mood about, your players? So I get it. I'll
give you a prime example, and this is a good transition into the draft, right? The Bears drafted Javon Dexter Sr. out of Florida in the second round. When we drafted him and before the draft, I was looking at this guy like, what the fuck do you do with him? Because his get off was literally just standing straight up and then kind of jogging, and sometimes he would get to the quarterback. We're in August now. I'm looking at this guy's like, holy shit, his athletic traits are off the chart. I think he's going to be a dog. I think he's going to get 6, 7, 8 sacks this year. Like, that's football for you. It happens. Opinions change. People get excited. You look at things through a new lens. It is what it is. I'm not going to yell at you for being biased as long as you admit you're biased, right? Like, if you're over here, you're biased and you're acting like it's fact, then that's an issue. And I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying in general. Like, if you're going to be biased and you're going to sit here and act like it's fact and I'm an idiot for disagreeing with you, that's when we have a problem. If you're going to open with, I might be biased, but then I can't hate you.
Well, look, we all have a little bias. The only thing that's not biased and that is a fact is that the Falcons suck.
Yo.
Fair enough.
Yo.
Fair enough. But real quick, just to wrap things up, last couple things here. The NFL draft, we got to touch on it. We've mentioned some of these names here and there, but who was your favorite draft pick that the Saints made?
I gotta say two. I know we're trying to wrap up, but I gotta say two.
No, you're good.
I loved the A.T. Perry draft pick. I think it was a very good steal in the later rounds. And then Jake, the quarterback we picked, Jake Haener, I think that's what is how you pronounce his name. Mm-hmm. He looked I don't want to get like another Ian Book thing going on. I was never too high on him, but Jake looks good in training camp, like he genuinely looks good. Like I don't know. I'm just really excited for those two picks. I didn't really like our first two picks, but I think we hit in the later rounds.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the A.T. Perry pick because I'm more of a steal kind of person. If I see a steal, then I'm all for it. Every mock draft I did had A.T. Perry in it just because he was there, right? He'd always fallen someplace. I'd always take an A.T. Perry. I'm an ACC football fan, so I watched a lot of A.T. Perry. He's a fun player to watch. I would say he's a taller, slightly slower Chris Olave. I would say he's lanky. He's not very big. He's like 6'5", 200 pounds, right? So he's like the Chet Holmgren of Saints. Okay. That's probably
that's disrespectful. That is disrespectful.
I think Chet gonna be a beast. So if he's a Chet Holmgren, then hell, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm not a basketball guy. I can't speak to it, but
I think A.T. Perry can be a solid 3 if shit goes bad. Because as of right now, he's not a 3. Mm-hmm. He's probably a 5. I think at the depth chart starting the regular season, he'll probably be wide receiver 5, maybe 4.
Who am I missing? Who's the fourth receiver? Because obviously Shaheed, Olave, and Michael Thomas.
This might genuinely shock you.
Tre'Quan
Smith is still the fourth wide receiver, and he's not very popular among Saints fans. But one of our best reporters, Nick Underhill, has kind of been alluding to it in his articles. He says, "Look, guys, I know y'all not a fan of him, but no receiver so far in camp has supplanted Tre'Quan as the clear-cut number 4 guy. So it's probably going to be Tre'Quan." Yeah. To answer the question about the best draft pick that I like the best, I hope Jason and Valente are correct because I'm not as hyped up about A.T. Perry. Truthfully, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, and I'm not going to act like I'm a draft expert. But nothing I saw from his highlights, or even when we drafted him, made me go, "Oh, this guy's going to be a guy for us." Like if we can get 2 or 3 solid years from him, great. But I'm not expecting much from him. I hope those two are correct. I really do. I'm not a draft expert, so I trust their opinion honestly more than mine when it comes to that.
I thought Peyton
ironically, though, I like Isaiah Foskey. And again, I'm not a draft expert. I'm gonna be completely transparent. Like I'm not the type that watches the game. I just go by one of the fucking draft comes on and we take the player, I go look at the scouting reports. I'm like, okay, and Foskey just looks like a player to me. Like, I think he's going to be not right away, but I think he's going to be good. But I am like the worst person to ask as far as draft evaluations. I will say this: the most fun pick, if he actually turns out to be something, would be Jake Haener. One, because when he did that little photo shoot, he looked like he was trying out for Zoolander. I like stuff like that. I like players that can be characters and who are going to be fun to be successful in the NFL. So that, and he was a Saints fan growing up. So I'm like, that would just be an incredible story if he winds up being of all, like the Derek Carr hoopla, and we had James Winston and all that. Jake Haener winds up being like the Saints guy for the next 10 to 15 years soon enough. That would be very, very fun. So that would be my pick for the most fun. But I'm something about Isaiah Foskey when I watch his highlights.
See, I'm with you. I like Foskey.
Yeah, Isaiah Foskey's probably the most complete player we drafted.
I'd say he's close to it. I think Jordan Howden's the most complete, but it's a different type of complete.
By complete, I mean what the Saints look for. His intangibles, his measurables.
Fair.
The way he plays.
When I think complete, I'm thinking who's going to have the highest floor coming in.
Right.
That's also. I mean, that's fine. That's valid.
He was the highest rated of our draft picks, I think. At least by, what's his face, Chad Reuter or whatever, and the draft experts, Zerloin or whatever, Lance Zerloin. I think he was the highest rated draft pick. So I mean, he's probably got the highest floor out of anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like Foskey a lot. There's definitely some work to do, don't get me wrong. And he's not somebody that I ever see being like a true alpha as an edge rusher, right? Like you can see behind me, I'm a nerd. So when I'm talking about edges, there's Batmans and there's Robins, right? Foskey's a Robin. And that's fine because Robin's great in his own right? He's funny, he's witty, he can do stuff Batman can't do. And hell, when he goes off on his own, he becomes even cooler than Batman, if you ask me. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. The point is, Foskey's more of a compliment to somebody who's in the bigger picture. And I think that's something I've seen Saints fans kind of look at is, okay, is Foskey the guy? Is he the next Cam Jordan? No, he's not. He's the next guy who helps out Cam Jordan. And when the next Cam Jordan. And when the next Cam Jordan's getting double and triple teamed, he comes off the other side and cleans up. Like, Foskey's good. He's smart, good run defender, that type of thing. I like him a lot.
He's the Trey Hendrickson previous before his breakout year.
There you go. Exactly.
I just want to clarify something. I said I didn't like the first two picks for us. I think the first one was more like, don't get me wrong, I love Brian Bresee, but his story's amazing. What he's gone through, it's
heartbreaking.
Yeah, honestly, I commend him for what he's gone through and what he's achieved, but I just think there was so much value at that pick. We kind of Nolan Smith was still there and we let him fall. Absolutely. And that made me upset because I was like, he's there. Let's draft him. We kind of need that next middle linebacker because as we said, Demario Davis is getting older. So that boom pick, that could have been it. I don't think we got someone that could turn into an all-pro in this draft. And I feel like if we drafted Nolan Smith, we would have.
Yeah.
Nolan Smith is not the Saints prototypical pick though. You'll never see the Saints pick someone like him.
And you said middle linebacker Nolan Smith, right? You were saying you would have Nolan Smith replace Mario Davis.
He's not a middle linebacker.
He's more of an edge. Yeah,
my
I know he's little, and it doesn't seem like he should be, but he is more of an edge. I can see why you'd get confused though. You see somebody that little, you don't think he's taking on an offensive tackle. I get you. But yeah, Brian Bresee, I like. Obviously, like Jason said, his story is heartbreaking, and I'm rooting like hell for this guy. And he's somebody that he's absolutely boom or bust. He is the definition of the phrase. If he booms, you're looking at one of the best defensive tackles in football, fantastic pass rusher, insane athlete. If not, it's the Saints saying, hey, this guy's really athletic and plays on the defensive line. Let's see if he works, and it not working again. And that would be the third time in the last 10 years that's happened with Marcus Davenport and Peyton Turner. Am I missing anybody there? I know those are the big two, but I don't think there's anybody else.
Those are the big two, just as far as the first round.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, I'm not counting out Peyton Turner. He can still turn it around and be good. I'm just saying from what we've seen so far,
I'll be honest. Marcus showed more flashes than Payton, so I'm very low on Payton. But hey, maybe that means Payton's going to have the opposite, and then Payton turns out to be the superstar. That'll be great for us.
Yeah.
But looking at the rest of the class here, Kendre Miller, Mr. Consistent, just a good, smart running back. Not somebody you're going to put in on the goal line or in short yardage situations. But the beauty of that is you brought in Jamal Williams. Doesn't bring a lot to the table as a pass catcher. You have Alvin Kamara. So you're building like a really nice 3-headed monster in your backfield. Everybody does something at a great level. Jono mentioned earlier that Kamara is not necessarily a guy who runs the ball a lot. He's more of a pass catcher. So Kendre Miller's a great compliment to him, things like that. Nick Saldiveri, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be an expert on him. He's an athletic offensive lineman. The Saints seem to like him. Sounds
Here,
great.
let's put it this way. Nick Saldiveri is the Taysom Hill of O-line.
Sure. That's actually a really good way to put it.
That's really how it is. Because he plays everywhere.
That's a good point. And then you look at Jake Haener. To me, he's more of like one of those guys that was a really good college quarterback in terms of his traits and whatnot. And then he's going to come in and be more of like a career backup. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the swag and the Zoolander vibes carries him to a real NFL career. By the way, you're the first person I've seen compare that photo shoot to Zoolander, and I love it. That's perfect. Yeah. But my favorite pick for the Saints was Jordan Howden. Jordan Howden, someone I absolutely adore because he was a guy that was a walk-on freshman at Minnesota, and then every year he consistently got better until he was a team captain, the heart and soul of the defense. And he's not somebody that's like a super athlete or has any crazy traits. He's just smart. He's tough. He's a hard worker. He's first guy in, last guy out, ton of grit, and going to go out there and fuck shit up. And I love that. I think he's going to come in and be a really nice rotational safety for the Saints. I got to be high on him because I made a video talking about my favorite picks for each team. And I said, I don't think Jordan Howden's ever going to be a superstar, but he's going to be a good role player. And either his aunt or his cousin commented on the video and said, no, he's going to be a superstar. So now he has to be a superstar. That is my new agenda. And then A.T. Perry, I thought was a really good pick as well. Somebody that can be a good complement to your receiver core. I thought it was a steal. I had a 4th round grade on him. You guys got him in the 6th round. I thought that was great. But overall, I like what the Saints did in the draft. I think they had a pretty solid offseason as a whole. So to kind of wrap things up here, final question. It's a 2-parter. What are your expectations for the season record-wise? You can either give me an actual record, a floor, and a ceiling, anything like that. And then what player are you most excited to watch this year? But you can't say Chris Olave because that's the easy answer.
Fuck.
And Valente, I know that's hard for you. He's your favorite player, but I mean, come on. Everybody's excited.
I'm excited
to watch Chris Olave, and I'm not a Saints fan. So
I have a signed jersey out of view. I've literally looked over to it. I don't know if you see me look over a few times. It's literally what I'm looking at. But I guess for me, the ceiling is 12-5. The floor has to be 9-8. I think like the reasonable, or not the reasonable record, but the record that I predicted for him was 11-6. I'm biased. There's obviously some bias in that.
Sure.
But it's the easiest schedule. You brought in pieces to, help change the way that help flip the script on how it was last year. Like we talked about earlier, there was a lot of one-possession games. You brought in people who were really good at, comeback wins. Derek Carr, more specifically, he's like 3rd in his career. There's pieces that they brought in to help fix what fucked the season up last year. And I don't know, patch one hole, and then there's like another one still there, I don't know if you get the analogy I'm trying to make. It's like this. Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of hard to predict because, last year we're all thinking playoffs, right? And then it just completely shit the bed. You never know whenever Dennis Allen's head coach. So I'm going to say optimistically 12-5. Realistically for me, 11-6, but floor and probably the Dennis Allen standard, 9-8.
I will say I think the record is going to be 10-7. I think that will be enough to win the NFC South. I will say this: fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So if Dennis Allen ends up being Dennis Allen, then I have nobody to blame for myself because Dennis Allen has shown us years now as a head coach who he is. So, shame on me if I'm going into another season thinking that we actually are going to be a playoff team, even though Dennis Allen has never shown that he can be capable of leading a playoff team. But partially that is due to, I do think that our talent is a lot better. Bias, obviously, but I do think our talent is a lot better. And I just don't have a strong feeling for the rest of the NFC South teams. I definitely think Tampa is going to be bad this year. I'm hoping they're not too bad because I don't want them to get a good quarterback in the 2024 draft. So I'm hoping they're like in that 5 to 6 win window. And I just don't see Atlanta or Carolina. I continue to think that Carolina might be that sneaky. That every year there's always a team that comes out of nowhere that nobody's expecting and can be good. Carolina might be that team to me this year, I fear. I don't think the Falcons are going to take that leap. I just don't see what a lot of other people apparently are seeing in them. Obviously, I'm biased because I hate them. So I think that with that and our talent, the Saints should win the division. I think 10 wins will be enough for us to do it. But I will say this. We keep saying easy schedule. That's one of my rules as a football fan. I don't buy into that easy schedule stuff because every year is different. Like, people were looking at the Jaguars last year. That's an easy win. It's the Jaguars. The Jaguars were a good team. So, before September of 2022, the Jaguars were counted as an easy schedule team on the schedule. But there's too much parity in the league for fans to talk about easy schedule. And Jason said the Eagles had an easy schedule. They did, but they also played in a tough division. So I think that when they did the math, like the Eagles had one of the toughest schedules because they had 2 other playoff teams that they had to play twice in their division. So you just can't go by, look who we're playing. You're like, we don't know who's going to be good or not. That's the beauty. And honestly, it's what makes the NFL the greatest sport and the best league in North America is that there's just so much parity. And the NFL encourages it that you just never know who's going to be a good team. So I'm not going to buy into we have an easy schedule. That's why we're going to make the playoffs. But I do think that the NFC South isn't going to take enough of a leap that we have enough pieces to win it with 10 wins. The player I'm most excited for, it's an easy answer, obviously, but Derek Carr. Like, whenever you get a new quarterback who is supposed to be that guy, you want to see what he can do. So I'm excited to see if Derek Carr is that guy or not. I am hoping he is. You mentioned that Joe and Howard's family commenting on your video where Derek Carr's brother follows me. Not David, the other brother. He has a brother named Derek Carr. So I got to go a little easy on Derek Carr if he's bad this year. Like, shit, his brother follows me on Twitter. But I'm excited to see what Derek Carr can do. And I'm hoping that he is the guy who can be our head honcho for the next 2 or 3 years as quarterback.
I forgot to answer the player I was most excited for. For me, it's probably Valente Taylor. I'm excited to see him take the next step. I think he will take the next step.
That's valid.
And then for me, I think this is a little biased. I think our ceiling is probably 13-ish wins, 5 losses. That's high. I'll give that. That could be
definitely
biased.
High.
I said that and I got shit on, so.
He did. I can attest to that. He did get shit on for it.
But I think our floor is winning the division, whether that be 8 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins.
Fair.
That's our floor. That's honestly what I think. And he said, Jono said it best. I hope our division's bad, but not too bad, because if one of them gets Caleb Williams, I might, it's going to be ugly for the next couple of years because
Tampa.
Caleb Williams.
No, not Tampa. Not Tampa. We've all seen what Tampa could do if they got a quarterback.
Oh yeah, so. Caleb's going to be a great NFL quarterback. I'm calling it now, but I think the player I'm most excited for this year, little underrated pick, but the swag Kaze Kage, Mr. Jamal Williams himself. I think he'll be big for us. Hopefully, it's not a one-year wonder like Miles Sanders was a couple years ago, but I think he'll be big for us because of our goal line troubles last year.
That's fair.
Did you say Miles Sanders?
Yeah, it wasn't Miles Sanders the rushing touchdown leader 2 years ago? I might be wrong, but
hold on. I completely mixed your sentences. I thought you said Miles Sanders played for us. I'm like,
no, Jason is
no. I'm talking when he was on the Eagles 2 years.
No, Miles Sanders was like just a random come up guy. Like he jumped into the top 5 rushing yards after being I think barely top 20 the year before or something. I don't remember.
For me, I think you guys will win anywhere from 7 to 10 games. I think that, I know that's a big range, but I think that's pretty fair. I would say floor 7, ceiling 10. I think 10-7 is absolutely attainable. I think if you guys are 10-7, that probably wins the NFC South. And then when you get to playoffs, everybody's 0-0. Anything can happen, all that good stuff. It's just I'm not going to go too crazy on any team from that division. We've talked about it. It's not a great group. Player-wise, though, I got to do it. Player I'm most excited to watch, by far, Adam Prentice, the fullback, one of my favorite players in the league.
Wow.
Somebody that I came around to last year. I was doing a fullback rankings. People were begging for it on TikTok, and I came on him, and I was like, oh, okay. This guy's kind of cooking. He kind of knows what he's doing. And I think next year, when you're going to have running backs that are, at least for the first couple games, that are more reliant on, actually running the ball and not being pass catchers, I'd like to see him get more involved. I'd like to see what he can do. I'd like to see him cook. But because people are going to look at me as if I'm unserious for saying that, other than that, I got to go with Pete Werner. He's been one of my guys since he came into the league. I love the guy. One of the smarter, tougher linebackers in the league. I love old school football, if that's not apparent. I'm a sucker for a fullback. I'm a sucker for a linebacker. And Prentice and Werner are definitely two of my favorites in the league. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do next year. But with that being said, I think that about wraps us up here. Before we go, if you guys would like to plug anything, Twitters, TikToks, YouTubes, whatever, by all means, the floor is yours, and anything you say will be put in the description down below for everybody to go check out.
ValenteTalksSaints on YouTube. I got a big week of, content ahead of me. Probably the next few months, obviously, we're ramping up the season. My birthday's Friday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We got the preseason game. I'm probably going to do live reactions to every game this year. I'm trying to do a spin on your series, Miller, and try and get fans of Saints opponents and just to discuss the game. I haven't, hit on any yet.
The Bears play the Saints this year?
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Week 9, I think.
Okay.
But
I'm sorry for anything I say during that week. I'm going to tell you ahead of time.
It's all right, man.
November 5th.
I already know it's going to be a hectic series. Look, we played the Falcons 2 times. We played the Panthers 2 times. We played the Buccaneers 2 times. If I get any fans from them, I probably won't do the Falcons.
Well, if you need fans, let me know. I can get you in touch with people.
Yeah.
I got you.
Like, a lot of the people that follow me follow you. So,
true.
A lot of my following comes from you. But, yeah, y'all can find me at ValenteTalksSaints on YouTube. That's pretty much it.
All right, well, I will plug. Obviously, you guys see my name right there, Jono Barnes. If you search it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Threads, on Twitter, on X, because it's called X now, any social media app, I will come up. Jono Barnes is my main channel on YouTube. I will give everybody a warning who makes it this far to the video. I'm not your typical sports channel, okay? Think of me as the Key and Peele to sports content. I do a lot of skits, comedies. Now I do. Yeah, Valente will vouch for me, right? I do. Now I do some serious analysts sometimes. Honestly, Miller, football, you done worked up a miracle. This is the most serious I've talked about football in a long time.
I'm glad I could get it out of you.
Everybody wants me for the comedy bit, but I have a very fun channel that I think is very unique that fans would enjoy. So much so that obviously I have my own merch now. This shit more than the game. So if you guys want to go purchase a shirt like that, well, I don't think any of the opposing fans will, but you never know. It's a cool shirt. You can find all the information on my Twitter, on my Facebook, on my YouTube channel, Instagram. Again, Jono Barnes is where everybody can find me. Well, I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing, getting all these fans together to talk Saints football. I had a great time tonight, so I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing the content that you guys do this upcoming season. And if I may, I do want to close out with my own question to everybody as we close out. And we just kind of alluded to it. Week 9, November 5th. It's a simple yes or no question. Not even no, excuse me. It's a simple either or question. Saints versus Bears in a Superdome. Who is winning? Start off with you, Miller.
2013 Saints.
I mean,
yeah, Jason had a score. I like that.
What was that? I couldn't hear. He kind of lagged on my.
27-13 Saints.
Ooh,
27.
Okay. That's a little steep.
The disrespect. Listen, all I'm saying is week 9, Justin Fields is going to be fully acclimated into the offense. He's going to have his chemistry build up with DJ Moore. Assuming everybody's healthy, I'm taking the Bears. I have to.
It's going to be the same way with Derek Carr, though.
Sure.
Yep, and we're going to be in the Superdome. So I'm just asking that.
Yeah, and it's
to let you know that you guys are getting your ass whooped in week 9, brother.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I'd be shocked if it goes the other way, but I gotta take the Bears. What kind of fan would I be if I didn't?
Yeah,
you mentioned DJ Moore. you're forgetting where he played. Marshawn Lattimore knows that. He's top 7 corner locked. He's locking that. Promise. He won't have more than
Okay,
80
so
yards.
Darnell Mooney torch everybody then. That's cool.
Hey,
Chase
man,
Claypool,
don't
when he's
forget about
finally
Vontae
breaking
Davis.
out, he'll do something. Cole Kmet will run the ball down your throats. We'll figure something out.
It's gonna be a
The
fun
running
game,
might.
guys.
Oh,
It'll
yeah, I
certainly be
forgot. We
fun.
usually have a problem with scrambling quarterbacks. That could get us. I
Yeah,
won't lie.
true.
Fields will just have 300 yards on the ground, and it'll be great. I'll have to listen to running back memes for a week, but it'll be worth it.
300 yards running and a 28-point loss. That's gonna be fun for you guys. I can't wait for it.
I'm not
Sounds
gonna
like
say
the
anything
Dolphins
as
game from
steep
last
as,
year.
I'm not gonna say anything as steep as 27-13. I'll be a little nice.
Yeah, you
I
got to
think-
remember, anything you say, Valente, I'm going to be on your ass
Yeah, I know.
about.
Yeah, we pretty much talk every day, so you know
Mhm.
I'm gonna hear this for however long. Say 34-23.
These double-digit scores, I don't get it.
You know, this is
The
the fun thing though
disrespect.
about August talk. It's because like we don't know who's going to even be playing by week 9, right?
Right.
Injuries have like so much occurs, so it's just kind of
You'll-
fun to talk. Get the
You'll
shit
have a
talking
more
now.
you'll have a more
Mhm.
serious number come towards that week, but like
Mhm.
as of right now, I'm having my fun.
Yeah. All I'm saying is when Fields is leading the MVP race by week 9, don't be surprised when he comes in and embarrasses everybody.
Yeah, well, you're gonna learn in week 9, Miller. This shit more than the game, so I'm giving you a full warning now, my man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. All right,
You're
well, we'll
also gonna
see.
learn.
We'll
Also gonna
definitely
learn
see.
that both teams will be like 1-7.
All right,
Playing
let's
in
end it
the
on that.
Super
We don't want no
Bowl.
more bad juju. Let's end it on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, both undefeated. Both
Knock on
undefeated to
wood,
that
bro.
point.
Yep. 8-0. Let's go.
8-0, both teams going into it. I don't think either of us have a bye before that, but I could be wrong. Either way, it'll definitely be fun. I'm definitely looking a lot more forward to that game now than I was going into this. So that'll be fun. Definitely got it circled on my calendar now. But that about wraps us up. Like I said, everybody's links will be in the description down below. And thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. And to everyone out there watching, and of course the 3 gentlemen joining me here today, I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, night, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people and you deserve it.